against foreign entanglements for over 50 years since the original platform of the Libertarian Party was created. We've opposed all foreign wars, especially wars like Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and potentially a war with Iran. And we see this conflict as one that could potentially escalate and cascade into a regional conflict that could entangle the United States to have vehemently against. I believe that the Iranian government is first and foremost a threat to its own people, their authoritarian regime. I believe Israel does have
wait to get
the
that
right to
L
defend
shape.
itself. I believe they are correct to be adversarial with Iran, perhaps even kinetic adversaries. But as far as the United States supplying weapons, supplying ISR, and the Israelis asking for the United States to get involved again and again, I think we're in a dangerous position where I think Trump's instincts are correct not to get involved directly with an entanglement with Iran that could spiral out of control, especially when the end game is not clear. If the end game is for Iran not to receive or to create nuclear weapons, then the Israeli attacks on supposed Iranian infrastructure should be sufficient. But as the war continues to escalate, we may find ourselves in another forever war that we may be ending up spending billions, if not trillions of dollars on, just as we have with the global war on terror over the past several decades.
Okay, so you're making a few mistakes because you're doing a lot of woulda, might, and all of that. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, the Libertarian Party of the United States is going to look foolish because Iran is not going to get the nuclear weapon for peaceful means. They're going to use it with blackmail. They might even use it literally, want to kill all Jews. So I don't know how any political party can say, yeah, we're okay, let Iran get a nuclear weapon. And without the United States support, not direct military, but certainly weapons and intel, the Israelis aren't going to knock out completely the nuclear facilities. They're buried under mountains, you know that. They're going to require major bombs that Israel doesn't have. So the Libertarian Party puts itself in a position of saying, if the mullahs get the nukes, that's okay. Or am I being unfair?
We believe that the best way to come to an end of this conflict would be to pursue diplomacy.
Okay, that's not going to work, and you know it. So look,
at this point, this seems to be off the table that the Israelis have attacked.
With all due respect, we have tried diplomacy for years. If you read my column on Obama and Biden, they tried to bribe them. They tried to do everything to them. So let's live in the real world, Stephen, please, because if you don't, the discussion just goes off the rails. So right now, the Libertarian Party would be okay if the mullahs got the nukes. Now we go to Ukraine. So you don't want the United States to supply Zelensky with military gear, right?
That is correct. I believe that the further the West and NATO pushes Ukraine towards war with Russia,
it's already a war then, Stephen. It's already there. War started when Putin invaded. Okay,
correct.
So
2014.
I understand that a little bit better than I understand the nuclear thing in Iran. So you don't want the United States to be involved. So if the United States isn't involved, the likelihood is that Putin takes over Ukraine because they need money and weaponry from the USA. EU can do a little bit, but we're the big dog. I just returned from China, Stephen. It is without a doubt that if the United States withdraws from helping Zelensky and Ukraine, the Chinese will seize Taiwan militarily. They're waiting to see what happens. You'd be okay with the Chinese seizing Taiwan, right?
We believe that the Taiwanese, the Ukrainians, and the Israelis can certainly purchase weapons for military-industrial conflicts. But the more and more the United States gets involved in these conflicts, either directly or through proxies, the closer this brings us to World War III and a potential nuclear escalation. I don't see an end in sight in the war with Ukraine and Russia. There was an opportunity for Russia and Ukraine to come to an agreement in Turkey. Boris Johnson told Zelensky not to capitulate to the terms of the peace agreement, that we would supply them with weapons in order to fight the Russians. And right now, the West is pushing Ukraine to fight Russia down the very last Ukrainian. So
Okay,
I don't.
but you're talking about giant countries like Russia invading Ukraine and China invading Taiwan. The little countries can't stand up. It's just like Hitler, when Hitler took Austria and then he took Czechoslovakia and then he went into the Tsar and then he started rolling. It's the same exact thing that we've seen for just millennia, that the big countries with the psychotic leaders take over the little countries. But the U.S. Libertarian Party does not seem concerned about that, and that concerns me. You see where I'm coming from?
I can see your concern. I think most Americans are concerned right now with inflation. We're concerned with our tax dollars.
Okay, but you're not going to have a worldwide economy if you have disorder, social disorder all over the world. The world economy collapses. If you have China on the march, if you have Putin on the march, the worldwide economy is going to collapse. So they can be concerned about inflation, but it's going to get a lot worse if you don't have social order. I'll give you the last word.
I think the United States post-World War II did a great job expanding throughout the world economically. We became a bastion of freedom, an economic powerhouse. Now we see China becoming that economic powerhouse. We need to get back to our roots as an economic superpower and a foreign policy based on non-intervention, diplomacy, and trade, rather than being the world's policeman and weapons manufacturer. The Libertarian Party has stood strong in non-interventionalism. We want to be closer to Switzerland, not isolationist like North Korea. We believe that the United States cannot continue with these forever wars. We already pay a quarter of our taxes go straight to interest. We're going bankrupt as a country, and Americans are just weary of any new conflicts. And at this point, they're unsustainable. And the Libertarian Party sees peace as the only option, and economics and diplomacy as the true right arm of freedom and democracy from the United States.
Okay, Stephen, good. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much. Very good discussion. Hey, homeowners, if you haven't checked your home's title, AKA your legal proof of ownership, it could already be stolen. Scammers target your equity, steal your title by forging just one document. Then they can take out loans or sell your home, all without you knowing. So you need to find out today if you are already a victim. Use promo code BILL at HomeTitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report, plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. So please go to HomeTitleLock.com now and use promo code BILL. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code BILL.
It's the Rev and the Rabbi every Sunday morning at 7.
This is Rabbi Joseph Potasnik. This is Reverend A.R. Bernard. Join us every Sunday for the Rev and the Rabbi.
Don't miss this dynamic duo, the Rev and the Rabbi, every Sunday morning at 7. If you missed the show, download the 77 WABC app or listen to the podcast at WABCRadio.com.
Join us for the Rev and the Rabbi
every Sunday morning at 7.
right here on 77 WABC.
Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. They want you to ask yourself, why is China now dumping U.S. bonds, grabbing prime American farmland, and rolling out its own new digital currency? Look, I hate doom talk as much as you do, but it's pretty clear that Communist China is plotting a financial Pearl Harbor that could pull the plug on the U.S. dollar and devastate your IRA and 401k savings. But President Trump is a genius because he's letting retirement savers like you protect your life savings with gold, and it's 100% tax-free. The one inflation-proof asset that's survived the fall of currencies, and when you call the trustworthy experts at Colonial Metals Group at 800-747-6589, that's 800-747-6589, or visit freegoldguide.com/stone, you'll receive a free 2025 gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth with gold. Plus, you can receive $7,500 in free silver. That's freegoldguide.com/stone, or call 800-747-6589.
Slater Shulman, 488 Madison Avenue, New York. New York is responsible for this ad.
Attention former patients of Northwell Sleep Disorder Center in Great Neck, Long Island. An employee of the Long Island Sleep Center is accused of secretly videotaping hundreds of patients and visitors in bathrooms at the facility. If you were a patient or visitor of Northwell Health Sleep Disorder Center in the last 3 years and received a letter in the mail, you may be entitled to substantial cash compensation. Call our law firm's Hidden Camera Abuse Helpline now. Northwell Hospital sent out a letter notifying those who may have been subjected to hidden spy cameras in the facility's bathrooms. If you were a patient of Northwell Sleep Disorder Center in Great Neck, Long Island in the last 3 years, you may be entitled to substantial cash compensation. Call now to get the justice, closure, and the financial settlement you deserve. But the deadline to file a claim may be close. Call our law firm's Hidden Camera Abuse Helpline now at 800-819-6421. Call 800-819-6421 now. 800-819-6421. 800-819-6421.
The views and opinions expressed by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect the policies or positions of WABC Radio, its management, or its sponsors.
This is Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Prescription drugs in America cost way too much, as you know, especially compared to other countries. That's because Big Pharma sets the rules and makes us pay the price. Thankfully, President Trump has just signed a new executive order to lower those prices, but change takes time. So All Family Pharmacy is stepping up and offering 20% off all meds. No insurance needed now through June 30th. Get more than 200 essential medications, including your daily maintenance meds, antibiotics, ivermectin, and methylene blue. All orders include a doctor's prescription and ship right to your door. Please visit allfamilypharmacy.com/bill. Use code BILL20 for 20% off all medications. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/bill. Code BILL20 for 20% off. Take control, save money, make America healthy again. All right, no Kings update. I wrote a message of the day. This is no surprise. He had 75 million people voting against Donald Trump. And you're surprised that somebody comes out and calls him a king and runs around the street with a sign after he's deporting hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals who the Democrats wanted in here. Well, it's totally ridiculous. This isn't anything surprising at all. Some facts about 2,000 protests, all 50 states, 5 million in attendance. Not many. That's not a big. There are some big crowds in liberal cities, but not many. 105 arrests across the country. That's very low. 1 death in Utah. So, you look. I was on Stephen A. Smith's podcast. He said, what do I think? I said, fine. You want to dissent. You don't like Trump. Get out there and just protest, but just don't wreck anything like they're doing in Los Angeles. The liberal media, NBC leading the charge as usual, they promoted these protests. Go.
Very impressed. In Ruby Redmine's Hannah, a man holding a sign reading, "No Kings," big one. In Los Angeles, a group holding a sign that says, "It's beginning to look a lot like Russia." In Michigan, a cutout of the Trump administration, what appears to be a clown car, very creative.
Yeah, I know. I guess there had to be TV outlets for left-wingers, and here's another one, Stephen Colbert, 100% of his audience is left. Here's what he said about the military parade. Go.
I have got some great news. We're going to have some terrible weather on the East Coast on Saturday, and that means Trump's birthday parade may be canceled due to thunderstorms. Ha, you made God mad, and now he's shooting lightning at your birthday paints.
All right, that moron, his audience is down by a third. He's got about 2 million people watch him. Same people who watch The View, and he's the worst. On the No Kings demonstration, the people who funded it are part of the 50501 movement, which is very, very dark and shadowy. Very. I'm not exactly sure on what it is or what it's doing, but they got a lot of money. Okay, and they were behind organizing this. I do have one name for you, Christy Walton. She is an heiress to the Walmart fortune, pumping billions of dollars into these far left causes. I guess she's replacing George Soros. Christy Walton. Now, there was an incident here on Long Island where I am with a congressman, Nick LaLota, who was attacked by shadowy dark money. So we wanted the congressman to come on, and he joins us now from Hop Hog, New York. I was very interested in the personal story here, not the bigger picture. So, you know, I have a house in your district, and I know you from the campaign trail and all that. What happened to you exactly?
So far, dark money groups have spent in excess of $700,000 against me. And by the way, I'm not the only one there. They're spending against about 10 or 11 House Republicans. So far, they've spent about $700,000 against me, spreading lies about the one big beautiful bill that honestly puts our country on a much better track. It ensures that we save money for future generations, secures our border, and puts the nation on a better track. But yet they're spreading lies about Medicaid in particular, and so far spending a lot of money doing so.
All right, who's they? You got the 1630 fund. Is that what it is? What is that?
Groups that put up a new fancy name, and then they unwind the group 6-9 months later after they're done spending their dark money. We often don't know the sources or the interests that are specifically behind these attack ads, which are mostly false, meant to scare residents, my constituents, into thinking things that are true that aren't. And it's really just a shame that they would go about this tactic when this bill is centered around work requirements. Work requirements used to be a bipartisan initiative. In fact, Bill Clinton, while he was president, supported the notion that if you wanted to receive federal government benefits, and if you were an able-bodied adult, you have to work for them.
Yeah,
and this bill merely states that 8 hours a month is all you got to work if you're able-bodied to get your Medicaid or get your food stamps.
Any intelligent American knows what this propaganda campaign is, but you yourself were targeted. Now, you came up with a figure of $700,000, right? You're adding up the television ads that went after you. Is that how you got to that figure?
Yes, only the TV part. We aren't able to yet quantify what they've spent in the mailbox. So the TV component alone is $700,000. We estimate the mail component to be about the same.
The companies that ran the ads should be able to tell you who bought the ads, right?
Yes, 3 or 4 shadowy groups that have these temporary names. They stand up these organizations. They wind them down 3, 6, 9 months later after they're done smearing their crap across America. It's by design that it's not attached to a permanent, long-standing name. It enables them to conduct their shadowy exercises.
All right, so these are pop-ups to get Congressman LaLota and 10 others in districts that they feel could go either way, because your district, the first district on Long Island, is in a lock to go Republican. Now, when you expose this kind of stuff, as that's what you're doing here, you're saying, look, I'm a congressman. I'm voting my conscience. I think that the Trump spending and tax bill is good for the country. This is your job. That's what you're supposed to do. And yet I'm attacked by a shadowy group who we don't even know who's giving the money to. What do the people say? I mean, anybody outraged about this, or are we just accepting that this is the landscape now?
So there's a country song or two that has lyrics that sound something like, when you tell a lie about me, I'm going to tell the truth about you. And that's been my response to these things all along. You know, we're Long Islanders. We like to be plain spoken. We like to hear the truth told to us. And when I come back with what the actual components of the one big beautiful bill are, overwhelmingly my constituents support it. So, fortunately, through social media, traditional media, and just getting the word out there in between, we're able to essentially blunt some of these false attacks ahead of time. But these have become par for the course. I think for the most part, my constituents are desensitized to attacks like this. There's been a lot of spending in my district over the last couple of cycles. I've been outspent each of the last 3 elections I've been in massively, 2-1, 3-1, and 6-1. Yet we've won each one of them by 10 points or more. So I think my constituents understand that what they hear from these shadowy commercials isn't true, and I'm especially flaunting it out there every day.
All right. If you get any further information about individuals, let us know. We pinpointed Soros, of course, and the heir to the Walmart fortune, but we want to kind of assemble this dark money list of people who are really helping this. Congressman, we wish you the best. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right, Smart Life, new poll. Harris just out after the Air India crash. 2,092 adults, 18 years are over. Here's what they found out. 88% of Americans admit to having a fear of flying. I don't believe that for 1 second. I'm sorry, Harris poll, I do not believe that number. 65% reporting increased nervousness due to recent plane crashes. All right, that might be true. The odds of getting killed, this is amazing, in a plane crash are almost 800 million to 1. There's some crazy number like that. The odds of getting killed in a car crash are 100 to 1. So anyway, I don't believe the 88% number, but I do know there are a lot of people who are afraid to fly, and some of them are debilitated. I mean, they won't go. 36% of Americans, they won't travel on a plane because they're afraid. Now, it's all about loss of control, because once you get in that capsule up there at 30,000 feet, you have no control over anything. You can't even get a sandwich up there, okay? I understand that. But the overall fear thing is what I want to deal with in this Smart Life segment. Look, many, many people punish themselves by irrational fear. They think that a cobra is going to sneak into their house and bite them, or a giant spider is going to fall on them. So they're terrified of all of this stuff. And when you strip it away, it's all about fear of dying. That's what it all comes down to. All these people are afraid to fly. They're afraid to die. Okay? So they don't go on a plane because they think they may die on the plane. But they go in the car. See, this doesn't make a lot of sense here. So anyway, here's my take. And if you can incorporate this to some extent, you'll be a much happier person. You're going to die. Hello. The best you can hope for is you die in your sleep without a lot of pain. You don't know when that's going to happen, and you have no control over it. However, you can take care of yourself physically and mentally. You're going to knock out the sugar, stop eating fast food, do some exercises. You can make your body stronger and your mind by watching this broadcast and everything like that. So there's things you can do. But if your time's up, it's up. That's called fate, F-A-T-E, fate. And you cannot alter fate. Okay, when it's coming, it's coming. So accept it. Accept it. Nobody likes it, but that's it. That's the human condition. So if you find yourself afraid of an airline trip, of a giant bear coming after you, analyze. It's all about the fear of dying. Okay? I'm not afraid to die. I'm not. I've had a great life. I am grateful that I have done so much with my life. All right? I'm not afraid. And that just takes a lot of this right off your shoulders. This day in history, June 16, 2015, Donald Trump launches his campaign for the president, first time around. And yours truly, your humble correspondent, was the first guy that Mr. Trump sat down with to do an extensive interview. Now, we have posted the entire interview on BillO'Reilly.com for premium and concierge members only. It's another perk. It really is relevant today. Putin, we talk about all kinds of things that are in motion today. All right? the border, immigration, and you'll be real surprised of what he said way back then, 10 years ago, and what he's saying now. Here's a slice on Iran. Go.
Iran says it's not going to make any deal if you inspect their military installations or all that. And I mean, they're obviously pushing President Obama around, all right? But they don't have to make a deal, Iran. They can get their nuke.
Well, Iran is actually treating us, you know, they're very good negotiators. The Persians are very good negotiators, and they are out negotiating us at every front. Very importantly, if we look, and if you look at what's going on with this lack of negotiation right now, as sure as you're sitting there, Iran is doing nuclear. They're going nuclear.
So what do you do with that?
You've got to either make a deal. Personally, I'd put on the sanctions big league. I'd double and triple up the sanctions and make a deal from strength.
Okay.
I like the
that's
idea.
interesting.
No, I like the idea of making a deal. Look, the biggest problem that the world has right now is nuclear weapons. I had an uncle, Dr. John Trump, who was a professor at MIT. He told me 40 years ago that someday you can carry in a bag a nuclear weapon or a weapon of mass destruction that can wipe out half of the east coast of this country. Global warming is not our big problem. Our big problem is the maniacs that are controlling weaponry that has never been like it is today.
Fascinating. All right, so I hope you guys become premium concierge members if you're not, and you can see the whole interview on BillO'Reilly.com. Okay, so we got a good lively mail segment, and we got a brand new YouTube channel thing I want to tell you about as well. Stephen A. Smith podcast. I just take that. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We'll be right back. All right, folks, let's talk about the timeshare nightmare. If you are stuck paying endless maintenance fees, special assessments, it is time to call my friends at Lone Star Transfer. With more than a decade of experience, they lead the way in the timeshare exit industry with exclusive solutions. Lone Star Transfer makes timeshare exits quick, easy, and guaranteed in writing. Over the past 15 years, this family-owned company has helped more than 30,000 owners break free from their timeshares. They have earned an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of 5-star reviews. I've endorsed Lone Star Transfer for more than 5 years. Now, because they are the only company that I trust to deliver results for my listeners. For a free consultation, please call 855-551-7066, 855-551-7066, or you can visit LoneStarTransfer.com.
Now, the latest from the 77 WABC newsroom.
Can I get the rest of those cookies, please? The cookies. The Fruity Pebble cookies.
Who knew my innocent homemade sugar cookies filled with Fruity Pebbles cereal would make a grown man confess his sins to the food gods?
There's no purpose whatsoever for a Fruity Pebble. A Fruity Pebble may be beautiful. I know it's inspired by Fred and Wilma Flintstone and those guys, right? But you can't be eating this stuff.
Greg Kelly making his mid-year pledge to his arteries. No more artificial coloring.
This stuff is actually poison that I'm about to eat, but I'm eating it for the last time. This is it. This is it. It's been wonderful. No more artificial 40 synthetic food dye for me.
He says the red Fruity Pebbles are really the devil.
Food colorants such as Red 40, which is present in widely consumed products, have been associated with behavioral issues in children, such as increased hyperactivity, cancer, all kinds of things.
Greg's been doing some reading and taking it to heart.
The Make America Healthy Again report from RFK is out, and man, how can you read this stuff and eat what I'm about to eat?
And he says the food industry is out of control.
Ultra-processed sugars are found in 75% of packaged foods. The average American consumes 17 teaspoons of added sugar daily, which amounts to 60 pounds annually. This substantial intake, particularly of high fructose corn syrup and other added sugars, may play a significant role in childhood obesity, because we have more fat kids here in America, twice as many as the next closest country.
So the next time you're craving a cookie,
we know what to eat. You gotta eat lettuce. You gotta eat fish. You can even have beef. All right, you just can't eat this artificial stuff. It's not even food. The body doesn't recognize it as food.
Lisa G, 77 WABC News.
This is Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Let's go to the mail. Jim Mundy, Richmond, Virginia. Kudos for your Sunday column, Bill. In just more than 400 words, you paint a clear picture of the relevant history behind what we're watching play out in the Middle East. Of course, I already knew some of the points, but you connected the dots in a way that only a true student of history could do. And I'm glad you read it. That's an important column, okay? And I hope everybody takes time to read it. And the facts are all there, undisputable. Bozina Hodge, Orange, California, your 6/13/25 column should be shouted from the rooftops, precisely outlines the Tehran mess and who is really responsible. I don't know if Obama and Biden are responsible. They certainly strengthened the mullahs. Both men made them stronger. Rick Lutz, Crescent Springs, Kentucky. Why should individuals that are living off government support free housing, utilities, food stamps, and a check each month? Be given a bonus check for filling out their taxes each year. About 50 million Americans, Rick, totally depend on the U.S. government for their existence. 50 million. A lot of kids in that group. That's the safety net. The federal government provides them enough money, food, entitlements to survive. That's what it is. John Stensland, McMinnville, Oregon. The price of oil here has gone up in the past few months, even though the price of oil has gone down $30 a barrel. Why? Because Oregon makes it very difficult to move oil around with all its regulations based on global warming and the taxation. All right, Salem, capital of Oregon, doesn't want you to get a break on your gas. It doesn't want you to use gas. It wants you to get a little scooter or something. Vicky, concierge member. Bill, I'm with you on the utter corruption of our corporate media. Unwatchable. My problem is I have friends and family members who still watch. Some honestly believe Trump is a dictator. You ran the ratings numbers on ABC, CBS, and NBC, and they are dismal, but even so, millions are watching. Well, they're Americans. They can watch what they want. The good news is that the legacy dishonest media is through. They're never coming back. And it's good news because they're dishonest. I worked there. I know when I worked at ABC, and I've said this before, Peter Jennings, a liberal man, but he did not allow his personal feelings to intrude on the news presentation. Koppel was the same way, liberal man, but once in a while, Koppel, he had a terrible producer, a guy named Kaplan, awful. Once in a while, Nightline would go off the rails. But Jennings, very disciplined, okay? Much more so than Rather. Brokaw, all three men lived in that Manhattan liberal bubble. But I admire Jennings for, holding a line on, here's the story. And I was on World News, 100 times in 2 years, so I knew what was happening there. Shelley McCoy, Galena, Illinois. Bill, you wrote about Brian Wilson and his destruction due to drugs. However, the root cause was due to extreme violence and abuse he suffered as a child. Yeah, Shelley, sure. And most drug addicts, alcoholics have trauma in their childhood. But they got to overcome it, or they're going to die and take a lot of other people with them. Philippe, I was raised in socialism in France. The American capitalism changed my life. I emigrated at 19. I retired at 68 with a decent income. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Well, I'm glad, Philippe, you're grateful to this country. I do believe it's a lot better than France, although I like going there, but I won't want to live there. All right, memberships, again, we're pushing that because we live in very complicated and dangerous times. You want to know the truth, it's on BillO'Reilly.com. And the concierge and premium members get a lot of services. Concierge member, get in trouble, we'll help you. Word of the day, don't be a nebbish, Nebbish. Love that word. You can use that word tonight. Don't be a nebbish. Okay, back with the final thought in a moment.
Final thought with Bill O'Reilly in 60 seconds.
Tax day is over, but for many Americans, the trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, listen up. The IRS is filing more than 5,000 new tax liens every day. And with tools like property seizures, bank levies, wage garnishments, they are applying pressure at levels we have never seen. But Tax Network USA has you covered. Are you self-employed or a business owner? They specialize in cleaning up financial chaos to get you back on track. You can still regain control. The consultation is absolutely free. Acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies from escalating. So please call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/bill. Deadline is passed. Let Tax Network USA help you before the IRS makes their next move. 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/bill.
Now the final thought with Bill O'Reilly.
All right, final thought of the day. Some of you know I go out to Eastern Long Island at Tip. Most beautiful place in the summer, I think, in the world. And for the past 8 weekends, it's been terrible weather out there. And the merchants are dying. And I know a lot of these people, and I feel so sorry for them. You know, the global warming thing has affected everybody. And it's true that global warming is happening. We don't know why, but it's happening. So there's no spring in the Northeast anymore. It doesn't exist. I think there have been 4 days since May 1st that have been pleasant. Fall goes into November here. So the autumn is elongated, but spring gone. And every weekend it's pouring, it's cold, it's windy, and then people don't want to go out to the resorts and the beaches in Long Island, big beach place, big boating place. So I was out there this weekend, and yeah, I went into a lot of stores and spent money I didn't have to spend just to help them out a little bit. And everybody's sitting there going, oh, no, I know. I hope we have a decent, it's almost, June's half over already. It's horrible. All right, that is it for us today. We are on it. I'll tell you, we're working hard on the Israel-Iran front, on the Big Bill front. We're ahead of it. So I hope you stay with us this week. Thank you for watching tonight. I'm Bill O'Reilly. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is New York's talk leader, the crown jewel of talk radio. WABC New York, WRCR Haverstraw, and 107.1 WLIR Hampton Bays. News first at 59 past the hour. 77 WABC News starts now.
65 degrees with clouds and light drizzle on this Monday, June 16th. Good evening, I'm Lisa Ritchie. President Trump has signed a trade deal with the United Kingdom.
We just signed it, and it's done. And so we have our trade agreement.
Trump made the announcement with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the G7 summit, calling it a fair deal for both. Meanwhile, the president has left the G7 a day early due to the rising tensions in the Middle East. Trump issued a warning on Truth Social saying everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Hours before Trump's warning, Israeli forces issued an evacuation order to residents of a large part of Tehran, warning them of the imminent bombing of military infrastructure in the area. President Trump is ordering ICE to ratchet up the number of raids in a number of Democratic-run cities, including New York. Mayor Eric Adams was asked about it.
We are not going to collaborate with civil enforcement, and we're going to encourage people to not live in fear and go on with their lives.
Adams says the city will work with ICE on criminal matters. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch says the program to crack down on quality of life crimes will be expanding to all precincts this summer.
The abandoned car that hasn't moved in a month, the scooters flying down the sidewalk, the noise that keeps them up at night, the tent that's been pitched outside their building.
The 2-month pilot program involving a new quality of life division has resulted in 6,100 summonses and 357 arrests. It will be expanded to all precincts in July. Mayor Eric Adams wants to expand New York's face mask ban after Saturday's No King's Day demonstrations here in New York City. James Flippin has the story.
A new state law makes it illegal to wear a mask with the intent to avoid identification or arrest while committing a crime or fleeing the scene. Adams telling New York One the law doesn't go far enough to discourage disorderly conduct from people hiding their faces during demonstrations. And Adams says there were a number of outside agitators at the No King's Day protests who wore masks Saturday. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
Early voting in New York City's primary election is underway. Voters are choosing among a crowded field of Democrats in the mayor's race.
Under the circumstances, it's very important that we take voting seriously. The earlier I can get this done, the better.
I voted like my life depends on it because it does with the rise of anti-Semitism in the city.
Early voting runs through Sunday. Primary day is June 24th. 90-year-old evangelist Jimmy Swaggart's been hospitalized in critical condition. Family members said he suffered a cardiac arrest during a Sunday service. Swaggart was defrocked by the Assemblies of God in 1988 after he was caught twice with 2 different prostitutes. Despite this, Swaggart kept preaching independently, opening his own international Christian TV network. A new study suggests that adding more fruits and veggies to your diet will help you get more quality sleep. Mark Mayfield fills us in.
Researchers from the University of Chicago and Columbia University found that eating more fruits, vegetables, and whole grains could help you get better sleep. These studies' co-authors said adjusting your diet could be a new and cost-friendly way to get better sleep. The study is one of the first to show what you eat during the day could change your sleep that same night. Researchers estimated that eating the recommended 5 cups of fruits and vegetables a day could improve sleep by 16%. I'm Mark Mayfield.
There's one guy who isn't worried at all about fruits and veggies. Joey Chestnut is back at Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest next month. James Flippin explains.
Joey Chestnut's return comes 1 year after being banned from the event due to his endorsement deal with vegan food brand Impossible Foods. In a post on X, Chestnut said he's grateful he and Nathan's were able to find common ground, and he's excited to be back on the Coney Island stage doing what he lives to do.
The #1 ranked eater in the world,
James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
And the jury has been dismissed for the day in the Sean Diddy Combs sex crimes trial here in New York City. The day started with a juror being dismissed after he had been given conflicting responses on if he lived in New York or New Jersey. The black juror was then replaced with a white alternate. The defense objected to the dismissal, saying that it would make the jury less diverse. In sports, it looks as though someone has finally scored in the Yankee game. However, it was the Los Angeles Angels. They have a 1-run lead over the Yankees. It is the middle of the 11th inning, so it's been quite a game. Your forecast tonight, mostly cloudy with a little drizzle, the low 62. Tomorrow looks mostly cloudy, humid, chance of a thunderstorm with a high of 70 degrees. Wednesday's outlook is partly to mostly cloudy, a few scattered thunderstorms, and a high of 79. We have 65 degrees. It is drizzling lightly outside of our Midtown studios right now. Stocks closed higher to kick off the trading week. The Dow gained 317 points today to close at 42,515. The S&P 500 added 56 points to 6033, and the Nasdaq rose as well, 294 points to wrap up the trading day at 19,701. 65 and drizzling. I'm Lisa Ritchie. Remember, the news never stops at WABCRadio.com.
Every weekend, newsmakers are on 77 WABC.
The Cats Roundtable. Gordon Chang on China.
Temu, the online Chinese retailer, was caught sending in seeds unsolicited to Americans. This looks like they're trying to weaken the United States by going after our farms.
Anthony Cumia on Senator Padilla threatening Kristi Noem.
You know, you hear from these people that it was an assault on a United States senator. Was it, though?
Just stop. Roger Stone on Iran.
We cannot allow the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon.
With Mark Stein of Vanilla Fudge.
We reimagined a lot of songs and blew everybody's mind. And it happened so fast we didn't even know it hit us.
Listen to these minicasts and more. Download the 77 WABC minicasts. Everything you need to know in 10 minutes or less. Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Nothing can come between us. It's dark, I know your heart away.
Breaking news.
And some enormous breaking news happening right now here on the Rita Cosby Show. Just in literally about 5 seconds ago, President Trump is directing his national security team to head to the Situation Room. That obviously means that action could be imminent against Iran. And this also comes as President Trump, obviously, he left the G7 early, which was in Canada, to go back to the White House, rushing back. And he is also telling Iranians to evacuate immediately. Also, get this, China advising citizens, on the other hand, to leave Israel as soon as they can via the land border crossings. Also, Russia ordering its citizens in Israel to leave immediately. And this is coming as massive strikes are taking place right now over Iran and over Israel. But the question is, what is next? And there are many reports that President Trump is working with Israel, and maybe a massive, massive attack against Iran may be coming within moments. Again, just a few seconds ago, getting the word that President Trump is telling his national security team to convene immediately in the Situation Room. He leaves a major meeting in Canada, also telegraphs to Tehran that they need to evacuate immediately. Clearly, something massive sounds like it is in the works. Also, we know that a whole bunch of striker groups are headed towards the region. And it also comes as there has been discussions where President Trump said, I'm going to give Iran one last chance for peace. Sounds like Iran said no thanks. And now it sounds like the might of America and the might of Israel may be coming against Iran. And it could be within minutes. So we're going to be following this extremely, extremely closely. Is the U.S. inching towards war? And is the U.S. maybe hurtling towards war tonight? Because this could be an enormous step if the U.S. plays an active offensive measure. This would be a major step towards maybe America getting involved in this battle. And obviously, President Trump, who has offered the Iranians so many different opportunities to come to the table, and it sounds like they have not done so. Even though he says, I keep hoping for peace, I keep hoping for peace, and yet the Iranians do not seem like they are close to coming to the table. A lot of rhetoric, but the actions say otherwise. And it may leave President Trump with no choice to be able to step in, especially at this moment, because we know that the United States believes that Iran is extremely close to creating a nuclear weapon. Israel clearly feels that they're very close to a nuclear weapon. There was an earthquake earlier today right by one of the main nuclear facilities there in Iran. A lot of people wonder, was that a reaction to a strike? Was it a potential nuclear test that was being done by Iran? There are a lot of possibilities, but the stakes could never be higher. This is an enormous moment in history, and we're going to be going through this together. Again, President Trump in the last few minutes directing his national security team to immediately convene in the Situation Room, which means he believes some sort of massive strike is indeed imminent. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, and you are listening to the Rita Cosby Show on this very, very historic night where the world is on edge. And here is President Trump earlier. He was with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and they both are in agreement that Iran cannot get nukes. Take a listen.
I want to see no nuclear weapons in Iran, and we're well on our way to making sure that happens.
And we've had a discussion about that this morning. There's a unit in the G7 absolute clarity in relation to the nuclear program. We do not want to see it.
Is it time to get rid of Iran's nuclear program once and for all, and to cripple them economically so they can't reboot quickly? Also, to make sure that so many people in the resistance groups there in Iran, many of them, by the way, led by women, because they really kind of took a stand after all the stuff about wearing the hijab, you may recall on that. So there are a lot of very powerful resistance groups. I know many of the leaders of the resistance groups. They say they are waiting for this moment, and that many of them have obviously helped with locations for Israel to say, hey, here's where you go, here's where you hit, here's where you strike. Could Israel be taking a massive strike tonight against an Iranian nuclear facility, an oil facility? The other question is also against the Ayatollah. That has been a major, major discussion in the last few hours, because obviously Israel took out the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, Salameh. They also took out 7 other of the key leaders. And then over the weekend, they took out the intel chief for the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and his deputy. So they are hitting hard. But the question is it hard enough? And now maybe the might of America may be stepping in. What are your thoughts tonight? Is this important to do? I say yes. It's important to make sure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. There's no doubt in my mind, and especially those who have spent a lot of time in Iran and understanding Iran, that Iran will use a nuclear weapon. I never thought in my lifetime I would be talking this way. And I never thought that I would be so worried of somebody actually doing it. But I have no doubt that these mullahs and these ayatollahs there in Iran, who clearly hate freedom-loving people around the world, they hate America. They chant death to America just like they chant death to Israel. And tonight, they are clearly digging in because President Trump, if he felt that there was a pathway to peace, that they would give up their nuclear enrichment programs once and for all, I'm sure he would take it in a heartbeat. I've known President Trump for decades. He absolutely would take it in a heartbeat. But at this moment, clearly, President Trump does not believe that and is bracing for what is going to be one of the biggest attacks maybe in the Middle East in at least decades to come. You can bet if Israel is going in, they are going to go in hard. And what we saw already in the first round in the last few days was just a precursor to maybe what is going to happen tonight. The president doesn't just suddenly leave a G7. That's a very important conference. He doesn't suddenly go into the Situation Room and convene his team into the Situation Room. It doesn't happen. So something major is about to happen, and it could happen at any moment. Also, Benjamin Netanyahu has said that maybe it's not out of the question to take out the supreme leader of Iran. What a bold move, what a powerful move. And I also say bravo, because he has clearly been the head of the snake. He's been guiding Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all of these people. He's been ruling his country like an iron fist. If you speak out in Iran, if you speak out, you are beheaded. You're stoned to death. You're hung upside down. Your family is too. You are not allowed to do anything, and it's because of the Ayatollahs and the mullahs. And there are a lot of people in that country that are begging begging for freedom and begging. And they were so upset years ago when Obama, remember, there was that spring, the Arab Spring, as many people saw it. And they had risen up there in Iran. And Obama didn't go in. He didn't believe it was a moment. Some people agreed that that was the right move, as much as it was a painful move, because they didn't believe that the resistance was strong enough at that time to maybe overtake the mullahs. This moment may be very different, and that could be what America is trying to do, is to make a regime change and also bring peace. Can you imagine if there was peace and prosperity in Iran? I've never been to Iran. I've heard it's beautiful. I've been invited many times, not by the greatest characters, but I also had dinner with Khatami, with the president at one time, and it was right after 9/11. And I'll never forget that moment, sitting across the table from the president of Iran, and it was just after 9/11, and he had requested just a few journalists to come and meet with him privately. And all of us were like, uh-oh, what's up? What's happening? Because this was not too long after 9/11. He came to the United States. He was at the UN. And I remember sitting just a few feet away from the supreme leader, wondering why he picked me to meet with him. I had interviewed a lot of Arab leaders and also a lot of Jewish leaders. So I figured that was clearly why I was on the short list to go meet with him. And I asked him, what was the difference at that time between Osama bin Laden and George W. Bush? I asked an open-ended question to him, and he cocked his head like Sybil, and he looked at me and he said, Rita, there's nothing different. There's no difference. They're both terrorists. They both have brought hell, essentially, to the world. And that's when I realized if he couldn't separate Osama bin Laden from the president of the United States, and he was considered one of the more moderate ones. That's why he came to America, to do a dog and pony show and to try to impress us that he was one of the more moderate ones. That was from the voice of one of the more moderate ones. That was truly, to me, eye-opening and revealing. And it said that even the, quote, moderate ones want to see a death to America and see America clearly as the big Satan. No matter what they try to pretend, when the right question comes, they look you straight in the eye and tell you that your president's a terrorist. So what does that say? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert real quick in Brooklyn. Robert, what do you think tonight?
Well, thanks for taking my call. Well, first of all, the seriousness of the situation, President Trump just posted that everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran with an exclamation mark. That gives you the dire seriousness of this situation. And I want to point out, Israel bends over backwards to try not to hit civilians. Meanwhile, for the past few nights, my people, the Jewish people, all our civilians have been constantly bombarded indiscriminately by a huge bombardment of missiles. They don't care at all about Israeli citizens civilians being massacred. And all the people who complain about Israel but say nothing about Iran, the anti-Semitism that really shows itself. And it's not just from the people like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib on the left. You have a lot of so-called America First people. You have President Trump making a big issue about Tucker Carlson and people like him, Alex Jones, Candace Owens. These people who claim to be on the right wing, they claim they own America First. And somehow, because I'm Jewish and I support Israel, I'm not America First. My father served honorably in the Navy during the Korea time. My father's cousin got hurt in Iwo Jima in World War II. My dad's oldest brother, he fought in the Coast Guard in World War II when they had the Nazis come up. His unit was there that caught the Nazis. My great-grandfather won a medal in the Spanish-American War. I don't need people like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and Candace Owens somehow saying that I'm not America First because I support our greatest ally, Israel, when their existence is being threatened by this maniacal genocidal group called Iran.
And Robert, I hear what you're saying, because, by the way, there are many people, though, who are extremely supportive of Israel, like unwavering supporter of Israel. And I think clearly this president, I think President Trump clearly is, because even though there are reports that he told Netanyahu that he didn't want to go after the Ayatollah, the leader there, it sounds like, Netanyahu isn't ruling it out. And it sounds like President Trump is not saying, do not do it, and not strong-arming him not to do it, which is what Joe Biden was doing. Let's not forget, Joe Biden was like, drip, drip, drip. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't go in right away. You can't do that. That's no way to fight a war. Obviously, you want to avoid war at all costs, and you want to avoid American lives being lost at all costs. You don't want to enter into a war as Americans that you don't need to get into. But if you feel that your greatest ally is being threatened, and also your survival is being threatened, that's why I also brought up, Robert, the comments from Hatame to me years ago. And that was in 2001, Robert. I mean, I could just, play those comments right now, and it's clearly what the Ayatollah is saying now, if not even worse, the current supreme leader. So that's why it is so relevant and so important that even the moderates there in the leadership structure, not the people, but in the leadership structure, they hate America. They're indoctrinating people. They're threatening people. They're killing their families if they don't join. And yet there are really courageous Iranians waiting for the go sign from America once enough destruction has happened where they feel they could go in. And they're in touch with the Israeli Mossad and also, I'm sure, many, many others waiting for freedom. And let's hope they get that chance very, very soon. Robert, thank you. And thank you for your family service, too. You just talked about everything that your family did. Now I know why you're such a great patriotic American and why we love you. Robert, thank you very much. We're going to continue your calls after the break, everybody. 800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222.
The Rita Cosby Show.
Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at abacuspays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at abacuspays.com.
Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Building Bridges, that which unites us. A thought-provoking new podcast series hosted by Michael Hirschman, CEO of Soloviev Group.
I'm Michael Hirschman. Join me as I tackle vital national topics that affect the man on the street to the executive suite with unscripted, authentic perspectives that spark in-depth discussions with experts in the field.
Go to buildingbridges.nyc to watch episodes or download wherever you get your podcasts.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation supports America's greatest heroes, U.S. service members and first responders who died or are catastrophically injured in the line of duty. Plus, the foundation helps homeless veterans. The heroes that Tunnel to Towers supports are heroes we owe a debt of gratitude to. The foundation's Gold Star, Fallen First Responder, Smart Home, and Homeless Veteran programs honor the sacrifices made for us by the men and women who risked their lives and bodies for our country and our communities. The foundation's Never Forget programs engage people in 9/11 remembrance across America with over 80 runs, walks, and climbs, and dozens of golf outings every year. The Tunnel to Towers 9/11 Institute helps educate children in kindergarten through 12th grade about America's darkest day while helping our nation to keep its vow to never forget. Help support Tunnel to Towers, its programs, and never forget 9/11 or the sacrifices of our country's greatest heroes. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Dominic Carter, City Hall.
Kevin Hassett, talk to me about addressing inflation. What's the right way?
Well, the wrong way, we learned from Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden, is to have the government spend recklessly and print money to cover the expenses. When that happens, you get inflation. Inflation really, really harms the country. And if you spend like crazy, then that's going to be a problem. What President Trump is doing is he, along with Elon Musk, have been leaders in finding the crazy things that we spend our money on and getting rid of them, and also working with Congress to have a reconciliation package, they call it, right, or a big budget deal, which is going to cut the heck out of spending, but also increase supply. So President Trump is really, really putting the pedal to the metal on supply, and he's cutting government spending as well, and that's going to get inflation under control.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform. 77 WABC presents Echoes of the Unknown. Tales of the bizarre and extraordinary. Here's James Golden. What happened to the vanished colonist at Roanoke? On July 22nd, 1587, John White arrived to Roanoke Island with another 117 people along with him to try to start their nation's first permanent village on the North American continent. A few months later, he sailed back to England to restock on badly needed supplies. But when he finally returned 3 years later, every resident had vanished. The only clue to their potential whereabouts? The mysterious words Croatan carved on a palisade and another Croatan carved on a tree. White assumed the residents had traveled to Croatan Island, which is now called Hatteras Island, off the coast of North Carolina. But a storm blew in and prevented White from reaching the island, and he was never able to raise enough money for another search. The bodies of the Roanoke colonists have never been found. When John White, the governor of Roanoke Island Colony, returned to the settlement in 1590, he found it deserted with no evidence of violence or bodies. Some documents suggest Chief Powhatan killed some of the colonists, but there's no archaeological evidence to back up that theory. Other theories propose the residents were attacked by the Spanish, or that the colonists simply died of natural causes. Whatever the case, the fate of the colonists is the biggest unsolved mystery in American history, according to William Kelso, Emeritus Director of Archaeology and Research at the Jamestown Rediscovery Foundation. What happened to the colonists of Roanoke continues to echo the unknown. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And Benjamin Netanyahu asking his criticism of those who are saying America first, maybe they should not intervene when it comes to Iran. And Netanyahu had a very powerful line. He said, I understand America first, but not America dead. He's saying clearly Iran has America in its sights. If it can wipe out Israel, it will keep going. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to BJ. BJ in Queens, your thoughts on line one, your thoughts.
So, good evening, Rita. I really think that this is the necessary move. These folks, for as long as I can remember, since 1979, they've screamed death to the West, death to Israel, death to America. I don't ever even know how you can negotiate with a foreign power like this. They had no intentions of ever not having a nuclear weapon. And I hope everyone notices the leadership style, the differences in leadership style. President Trump is heading home to take care of business. He's not hanging out with Fidel Castro watching a ball game. He's not pretending it's not going on.
And you know what he's not doing? He's not wandering in the forest or shaking dead air. You know, that's for sure. You're right. It's a real leader and there's clarity.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II, one that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.
Donate now to toysfortots.org. Working year-round, delivering hope to children at Christmas time. children and beyond. In 2024, Toys for Tots provided over 30 million toys to nearly 13 million children in need. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org. Since 1947, Toys for Tots has distributed 708 million toys to 314 million deserving children, working year-round. Toys for Tots. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org.
Hey, Greg Kelly here. For Colonial Metals Group, they want you to ask yourself, why is China dumping U.S. bonds, grabbing prime American farmland, and rolling out its new digital currency? Look, I hate doom talk as much as you do, but it's pretty clear Communist China is plotting a financial Pearl Harbor that could pull the plug on the dollar and devastate your IRA and 401k savings. But President Trump is a genius because he's letting retirement savers like you protect your life savings with gold 100% tax-free. The one inflation-proof asset that survived the fall of currencies. And when you call the trustworthy experts at Colonial Metals Group at 800-655-5186, that's 800-655-5186, or visit freegoldguide.com/Kelly, you'll receive your free 2025 gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth with
Bitcoin, baby,
and to receive $7,500 in free silver. That's freegoldguide.com/Kelly, or call 800-655-5186.
Lunch was great. Greenwich Village is a fun spot.
Can we stop at a bathroom?
Are you all right?
I keep having stomach issues after eating, like diarrhea, gas and bloating, abdominal pain, and sometimes oily stools.
Sound familiar? Those stomach issues may actually be a pancreas issue called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. Creon pancrelipase may help manage EPI. Creon is a prescription medicine used to treat people who can't digest food normally because their pancreas doesn't make enough enzymes.
Creon may increase your chance of fibrosing colonopathy, a rare bowel disorder. Tell your doctor if you have a history of intestinal blockage or scarring or thickening of your bowel wall, if you are allergic to pork, or if you have gout, kidney problems, or worsening of painful swollen joints. Tell your doctor if you have any unusual or severe gastrointestinal symptoms or allergic reactions. Take Creon as directed by your doctor and always with food. Do not chew capsules as this may cause mouth irritation. Other side effects may include blood sugar changes, gas, dizziness, sore throat, and cough. These are not all the side effects of Creon. Call 800-633-9110 or visit creoninfo.com to learn more. That's CREONinfo.com.
I'm asking my doctor about EPI and if Creon could help.
It's the Rev and the Rabbi every Sunday morning at 7.
This is Rabbi Joseph Batasso, Assistant Reverend Join us every Sunday for the Rev and the Rabbi.
Don't miss this dynamic duo, the Rev and the Rabbi, every Sunday morning at 7. If you missed the show, download the 77 WABC app or listen to the podcast at WABCRadio.com.
Join us for the Rev and the Rabbi
every Sunday morning at 7.
right here on 77 WABC.
Get peace of mind by planning ahead. St. Charles Cemetery on Long Island is now offering pre-construction sales for its newest community mausoleum, Christ the Good Shepherd. Act now and be among the first to select a prime location. 10% down and up to 10-year payment plans are available with no interest on pre-need purchases. Call 631-249-8700. 631-249-8700. That's 631-249-8700. Or visit ccbklyn.org.
I'm Ultima Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Every time one of my children started driving, it was terrifying. Thousands of accidents happen across the country. We see it every day. If you've been injured in a car accident, call us.
Now, pound law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Don't waste time trying to get rid of that old or broken car. Cars for Kids is the easiest and fastest way to donate your car and get a tax deduction too. Go to carsforkids.org today. That's cars with a K.
Hello, this is John Katsutikis. Advertising here on WABC is just common sense. Nielsen has said that WABC is one of the leading AM stations in the country. Tell me what we can help you with. Increase your business at reasonable rates cross country. Email me at cats@wabcradio.com and I will get back to you and tell you the great deal that you can get on WABC. Email me at cats@wabcradio.com.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And tonight's Back the Blue segment coming from Chester, New York. where police officer Nicholas Contino and a good Samaritan, Nathan Felix, worked with a paramedic and motorist to free a 68-year-old woman from an overturned vehicle. The woman is in stable condition after being rescued from a vehicle fire that engulfed her car when it flipped over during a crash on a highway. When they got on the scene, authorities discovered that the vehicle was totally engulfed in flames and that the driver was still trapped inside. So the officer, who was the first police officer to get there, immediately gave his fire extinguisher to a passing motorist and worked to locate the operator of the vehicle. Taking swift action, he was able to break the sunroof glass and free the woman from the vehicle. Thankfully, with the assistance of two passing motorists and a paramedic, they all worked together to help him to remove the woman from the vehicle and away from the fire as the car quickly became engulfed in flames. The woman suffered burns to about a third of her body, but she is thankful to be alive. She's in stable condition. And the Chester Police Department said that Officer Contino, his efforts greatly increased the motorist's chance of survival, and he is commended for a job well done. And he certainly is. Bravo to our great men and women in blue. Well, we are talking about, it looks like the Mideast is about to erupt even more. And we are hearing reports that President Trump is now going to the Situation Room, ordering also his key cabinet to also go down to the Situation Room right now. And this comes as there are evacuation orders from the president putting out that message saying it is time to get out now. It came before, there's been so many reports all day long. I mean, at one point, President Trump said, I'm going to give Iran one last chance. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've said it over and over again. And he's saying everyone should now immediately evacuate Tehran, saying it is pivotal, it is key, and obviously something is on the brink right now. Officials also saying that tensions are riding high, that there are many people at the White House right now as we speak. And of course, it is nighttime, but about to be daytime, which is interesting, coming up in Iran because they are several hours ahead of us. So could something be happening now? Could it be happening in potentially a matter of hours? Clearly something's imminent because President Trump rushed back from Canada, from the G7, leaving them, also not signing a statement on Israel and Iran, and instead rushing back to the White House, clearly knowing that something major is at hand. Well, here is Benjamin Netanyahu. Of course, this is the prime minister there of Israel. And this is when he was asked, would you take out the supreme leader of Iran? And here's what he said.
Well, it's not going to escalate the conflict. It's going to end the conflict. We've had half a century of conflict spread by this regime that terrorizes everyone in the Middle East, has bombed the Aramco oil fields in Saudi Arabia, is spreading terrorism and subversion and sabotage everywhere. That's the forever war is what Iran wants. And they're bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. In fact, what Israel is doing is preventing this, bringing an end to this aggression. And we can only do so by standing up to the forces of evil.
Is it time to cut off the head of the snake once and for all? And we're talking about the leadership there in Iran. Obviously, a lot of number 2s and 3s in terms of the roster have been taken out. But there could be a chance that even the number 1 gets taken out, or some very, very severe message. Either leave within the next few minutes, or else that missile is coming right into your home. Here is Lindsey Graham, of course, Republican of South Carolina. He has been a big supporter of going after Iran, and this is what he said a little bit ago.
The worst possible outcome for the world is for the Iranian nuclear program to survive after all this. How do you destroy the program? Through diplomacy? I prefer that, or through military action. If diplomacy is not successful and we left with the option of force, I would urge President Trump to go all in to make sure that when this operation is over.
هل القنابل التي تمتلكها الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية تستطيع أن تصل إلى عمق
يعني يصل إلى أكثر من 60 متر. هذه القنبلة GBU 57، وهي القنبلة الأكبر التي تمتلكها الولايات المتحدة. إذا كان الحديث عن منشأة طبقا لما يقول المراقبين ما بين 80 إلى 90 متر، يعني ليست حاسمة بالمناسبة أيضا هذه المسألة. سؤالي الآن
If you're going to do it, do it. Because if not, they will reconstitute very, very quickly. So that is obviously a message that it sounds like it's going to be heard loud and clear in Tehran almost any moment. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Liz in Florida. Online.
Assassination of President Trump, and Iran is responsible for October 7th, and Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah, and Iran's government wants to wipe out Western civilization. Thank God for Israel. Israel has taken missile after missile and terrorist attacks for years. I have a lot of family in Israel, Rita. I have a lot of friends, my grandchildren, my daughter, my son-in-law. They all live there. They keep on running to their safe room. It's called a mamad. What kind of life is that for children or for anyone? Enough is enough.
And you know, Liz, by the way, I want to have you describe sort of the safe room, because every Israeli family essentially has one, right?
Yes. It's like a protected space where they build it, and it's like concrete and steel, and it's supposed to protect. Listen, if a missile goes straight to it, I don't know how great it's going to be, you know, to survive in it, but it does protect you more so in any other place. And also the basements. I remember when I was there October 7th, we were staying in a hotel in Tel Aviv, and we ran, the safe room was the stairwell, and then we went down to the basement. And it was very, very scary, but this is the kind of life that they're so used to. The kids, they're constantly running. And, you know, Iran was going after us as well, right? So Israel saved us and saved the world. And President Trump is doing the right thing. Now, we have a specific bomb that Israel doesn't have that will penetrate down deep to destroy their nuclear facility.
Yeah, these are the bunker buster cluster bombs, especially, by the way, for the low nuclear facilities, because there are many that are deep underground. For those, they really do need U.S. assistance.
Right, and thank God. And here we go. Because we need to save ourselves and the world. But can you imagine, Rita, if the world got involved in trying to stop Hitler back in the 1930s, how many lives would have been saved? Think about that.
Absolutely.
And so now look what he's doing. President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu together, they're going to make the world safe again, basically.
You know, Liz, I think about what a lofty decision this is, and it couldn't be more real when you're dealing with, nuclear powers and someone who wants to be a nuclear power, and somebody who is truly an evil regime that will absolutely use it against Israel, against its own people, against America. And that's why this is really a survival of the world question. And I really do feel that strongly about it, because if President Trump were to, imagine if Biden was still in the White House right now, Liz, I mean, we'd all be going, oh my gosh, we need bunkers in our homes, I mean, truly, because he was so nonchalant about Iran. And remember, they sent in famously all the pallets of cash that certainly helped bolster Iranian weaponry. There were so many layers, and just the message it sent when he pulled out of Afghanistan. See ya, we'll leave high and dry, embarrassingly. So many of these different things that have happened in the last 4 years prior to this moment. Thank goodness President Trump's in the White House right now when it is such a critical, eminent decision, right, Liz?
Absolutely. If Biden or who knows any Democrat was in office now, we'd all be in trouble. But believe me, God is in charge. President Trump is here now, so let's not think about what could have been, because right now, let's just pray for all of us. Pray for President Trump, pray for America, pray for Israel, and just pray for those poor Iranians who are living under that rule and being tormented. So, Israel is God is really saving today, and thank God President Trump is in the office, and
yeah, you need clarity. You need a leader. I'm with you, Liz. By the way, I feel the same way too, because I feel like knowing him, he has guts of steel, nerves of steel, calm, very composed, very clear, and also has a great connection with Netanyahu. That's why I say I can't even imagine if Joe Biden right now was the president, given the dynamics that we're talking about tonight. Wow. Thank you very much, Liz. Let's go to Al in Yonkers on line 5. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, hi, Rita. The world is on edge right now. We have to be concerned. The Chinese aren't just going to sit on the sidelines. President Xi, he's got a lot involved here, too.
So what do you think he's going to do, Al? What do you think he would do?
I'm really not sure. I know he has a relationship with Iran, so I really don't know. I think time will tell in the next day or so what's going to happen. But this is not like a sure thing that America and Israel is going in, and everybody else who doesn't like Israel and America is just going to let it occur. Maybe it will, but I would be concerned for Armageddon. You never know.
I know, and that's why, Al, I hate to say that it is such a serious time, and that's why I was saying at the top, too, that Israel is also clearly bracing, and the Chinese and the Russians are ordering embassy staff and citizens that they have. They have a lot of citizens that are in both of those countries. In Israel, then both of those countries are ordering them to leave immediately. Saying get out. They're not saying that to the Iranians. They're saying it to Israel. In other words, something's coming there. So they're already clearly showing where they're on this, the side they're fighting for in this war, right?
That's right. And I would be more concerned with the Chinese overall, because the Russians probably don't want to fight on two fronts. They've been damaged significantly by the Ukrainians.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, but they're still fighting. They are still absolutely, I think they'll be reluctant. Look what happened in Syria. They sort of stood back, remember, of late. So who knows?
Because they've been weakened.
Yep.
Yeah.
They may just feel like we've got these are our issues here. The problem is also they are supplying the weaponry. Iran is constantly supplying weaponry to Russia and vice versa. So there's a relationship. North Korea, let's not forget about North Korea and all this mix too. They have a friendship with Iran. So you're right. This is a time, everybody, to really pray as we're hearing that President Trump again heading to the Situation Room. Something could be extremely imminent. Al, thank you. It's always great to talk with you. Let's go to Joe in Trenton. Joe, your thoughts on line 1. What do you think?
Rita, what's about to happen the blame needs to be placed directly on the lap of Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi for not doing a damn thing to stop Iran from, number one, enriching their uranium, as well as giving them the tens of billions of dollars to be able to afford to take care of what they do with their proxies as well. We had Rob Malley in the State Department who had his security clearance taken away. We still haven't heard anything about that, as well as the 3 others that were in the Pentagon working behind the scenes with Iran. What's about to happen, they're going to blame Donald Trump, but no, it all belongs to Joe Biden and his crew.
Yeah, I agree. This is on Joe Biden and all the acquiescence, and Obama. Remember, it was during Obama's time that pallet came in with all the cash, and Joe Biden continued that policy. He never was heavy-handed with Iran. They never took him seriously. He never also was supportive of Israel, too. I mean, that was the most disgraceful thing. I'll never forget, Joe. when we heard reports that when Joe Biden was asked sort of about Israel, it's like, well, and how about Schumer calling for a regime change in Israel? Remember that?
Yes.
Remember when that was happening? I'm thinking of all these moments that sent clearly a message to Iran. We can keep going because these guys either don't care or they're too stupid. And either way, it's dangerous, right, Joe?
Yeah, exactly. And that's tomorrow. All we're going to hear, it's Donald Trump, the warmonger, Donald Trump, the warmonger, not Joe Biden, the weakling who allowed it all to happen.
No, that's a great point. We cannot forget how we got to this moment. Thanks, Joe, very much. We're going to continue your calls after the break, everybody. 1-800-848-9222. And you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
It's The Rita Cosby Show.
Dr. Howard Deasy, founder of Balance of Nature and formulator of the fruits and veggies and fiber and spice supplements, has teamed up with veterinarian Dr. Jake to create Dr. Fido's Dog Food Topper, a tasty, nutritious way to enrich your dog's meals. Just scoop, sprinkle, and stir. Dr. Fido's a human-grade food topper of 40 whole foods. Every scoop is packed with colorful fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers you'd recognize from your own kitchen. So go ahead, give them something to bark about. Call 888-388-7297 to order today. Veterinarian developed, dog approved. Don't just take our word for it.
We used to only have one farm dog. We now have 3 of them, and they all love it.
Don't skip the chance to give your furry friend ingredients that are whole foods. Call 888-388-7297 or go to drfidos.com, drphytos.com. And for a limited time, order now and receive a 10% discount with our money-back guarantee by using promo code APPLE.
Greg Kelly here for Colonial Metals Group. China's leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II, one that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/Kelly or call 800-655-5186 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.
Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Building Bridges, that which unites us. A thought-provoking new podcast series hosted by Michael Hirschman, CEO of Solaviev Group.
I'm Michael Hirschman. Join me as I vital national topics that affect the man on the street to the executive suite with unscripted, authentic perspectives that spark in-depth discussions with experts in the field.
Go to buildingbridges.nyc to watch episodes or download wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, the latest from the 77 WABC Newsroom.
This would happen, and it's happened.
Greg Kelly, midday host here on 77 WABC, had his wish come true. No, a genie didn't pop out of a bottle. He didn't blow out candles on a birthday cake. Greg didn't see a shooting star. No, Greg looked down at his iPhone, and this happened.
Elon Musk, the most successful, richest man, second most successful behind Trump, richest man in the world, just re-X'd me, retweeted me.
Greg went down to Washington, D.C. to interview the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, and during the interview, Vance mentioned Elon Musk.
And you see me, and you see Greg Kelly, and it's very, very nice. So at Greg Kelly USA, if you want to see what all the buzz is about that I'm generating. Well, actually, no, he generated it. Let me see. He's got like 100 million followers on X. And he tweets something, and 30 seconds later, it's been multiplied by like 100,000 times.
And you know what that means?
It probably means, you know what this means, right? Pretty soon he's going to reach out again. He's going to want to do a new business venture with me. He's going to want to invest a lot of money in everything that I'm doing. And right, we're going to be friends, and we're going to be partners, and probably I'm going to have it right. It's just a really nice gesture.
So keep dreaming, Greg, because just like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, dreams really do come true.
Retweeted me. This guy knows I exist. How about that?
How about that?
Lisa G, 77 WABC News.
is the Rita Cosby Show.
The Mideast on high alert, and we will continue to follow these developments. Also, what did you think of the military parade over the weekend? I thought it was fantastic. When I have seen some of these people criticizing and saying, oh, it looked like Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un was running the parade, I thought that was preposterous. I thought it was so great to showcase the great U.S. Army on their 250th birthday. And I thought President Trump's speech I thought his words were really powerful. And I thought also, given what's going on in the world tonight, it could not have come at a more important time. Also, Minnesota, thank goodness they got that guy, the one who opened fire on the state senators, the two families. We're finding out tonight that he had another target, but the people were not home. So it could have been so much worse. And also, we did a big interview earlier today with Eric Trump, and we're going to be playing that tonight because it talks about the Trump Mobile. It is a brand new service. It's a huge announcement, and it comes after literally 10 years since President Trump famously came down that escalator, and that's when they decided they were going to go after him. They're like, oh, this guy's got charisma. He wants to change America for the better. Oh, we got to keep him out of office. So here we are 10 years later. And I was with Donald Trump today. I was with Eric Trump today, I should say, at Trump Tower. And it was interesting. Boy, it was a zoo. There are so many moving parts. It's incredible what the family is juggling and everything that they're doing in terms of keeping an eye on the world and safety. And obviously for the family, for the two sons. For the two older sons, because Barron's a son too, but for the two older ones, very entrenched in the business, and they are doing some really amazing things. And this is all based on America because they love this country. So we're going to play Eric Trump for you later on in the show. You definitely do not want to miss that. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Dom in Minnesota on line 5. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, Rita, I think Trump's actions now in supporting Israelis is probably going to, a pretty good chance it's going to bring a real peace and stability to the Middle East because Iran is the only country. It's going up its own neighbor. Saudi Arabia is even allowing Israel to fly over them, and also the other few countries. They're allowing, yeah, you go ahead and fly and take them out. They have feud among themselves. So I think people in Iran should say to the leadership, you guys go ahead and say, we who are about to die salute you to Trump.
In other words, Allah's going to heaven soon. Is that what you're trying to say there, Dom?
Basically, that's what it is. But I think when Trump said to Netanyahu, don't kill the Ayatollah, I tended to agree with him because that would probably turn that into a religious war, kind of like the Crusades. So I was afraid of that, and I think that might escalate that because even though he's a bad person, he's an evil person, the Muslim world might look at it as a religious war. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, and that is the fear. The problem is if you don't take him out, then you still have the head of the snake there who is ruling everything. I mean, you have to somehow get the leadership out, whether it's voluntarily, squeezed, or involuntarily. That's the question. The problem also, you're dealing with people who have almost sort of a suicide mission in many ways. It's the kamikazes from Japan in World War II like.
This is New York's talk leader, the crown jewel of talk radio. WABC New York, WRCR Haverstraw, and 107.1 WLIR Hampton Bays. News first at 59 past the hour.
77 WABC News starts now.
Cloudy skies on this Monday, June 16th. Good evening. I'm Lisa Ritchie. President Trump is not backing down on ICE raids, especially in Democratic states. Mark Mayfield reports.
On Sunday, Trump announced he is directing his administration to use every resource possible on mass deportation efforts. He mentioned increasing enforcement actions in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and other cities, he considers the core of the Democrat power center. Trump made the announcement a day after No Kings protests against his policies were held in major cities across the U.S. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Israel says Iran has launched about 350 ballistic missiles at the country since Friday, but most of them were intercepted by air defense systems. The conflict began Friday when Israel struck Iranian nuclear sites. Israeli President Isaac Herzog says the objective is to halt Iran's nuclear capabilities.
We've carried out a massive operation. This operation strengthens the security and well-being of the free world, not only Israel.
Some 24 Israelis have been killed so far as Iranian missiles made it through its defenses. Calls for increased security are growing after 2 Minnesota state lawmakers were shot on Saturday. More from Lisa Carton.
Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar told NBC's Meet the Press that her security was increased after she was reportedly a target of the suspected assassin.
Have added security without my request, so I think they're concerned about everyone.
Authorities say the suspect, identified as 57-year-old Vance Bolter, had a target list including dozens of names, mostly Democratic lawmakers and prominent abortion rights supporters. Police believe Bolter fled the Minneapolis area after the shootings and called them targeted. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for any information leading to his arrest. I'm Lisa Carton.
2 of the 4 detainees who broke through a wall and escaped from a federal immigration detention center in Newark, New Jersey last week have been captured. Noah Layden has more.
2 other detainees are still on the loose today. Those with loved ones who've been held at the Newark ICE detention center say they're not being well fed, so that's what led to the revolt and escape last week.
He's lost over 25 pounds. He tells his wife and he tells us that when he gets up, he gets really dizzy because of the malnutrition. But they told them that was part of the tactic, so they can just go ahead and sign and auto-deport themselves.
All 4 men who escaped are in the country illegally and have been charged with crimes by local police in both New Jersey and New York City. Noah Layden, WABC News.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams is calling for a ban on face coverings during protests after Saturday's No Kings Day demonstrations. A new state law makes it illegal to wear a mask with the intent to avoid identification or arrest while committing a crime or fleeing the scene. Adams says the current law doesn't go far enough to discourage disorderly conduct. New York City Democratic mayoral candidates are cross-endorsing each other as early voting continues. Lisa G. has more.
Several candidates are working together to strategize how to defeat former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has been the front runner in several polls.
Type of 50-50, I might go with Cuomo, but then so I'm on the other side. I feel like he's younger, so he will understand the younger people side of you to it.
I feel very comfortable in my choice, and I do not believe in the vision that Mamdani has. So it was very easy for me not to vote for Mamdani.
Zoran Mamdani has cross-endorsed Michael Blake in an attempt to combine support in the ranked choice voting system. He also threw his support behind Brad Lander. Lisa G., 77 WABC News.
Charges are pending for a man accused of slashing court officers in Manhattan criminal court this morning while scanning people going through the metal detectors. Attorney Charles Miller saw the aftermath.
There's a center desk in the middle of the lobby area that you could see visibly blood that was on top of the desk. I've been coming here for over 20 years. I've never seen an incident of that nature as a court officer said.
One of the officers had cuts to his face while the other had cuts to his neck. A third court officer was injured when the suspect allegedly threw him into barriers as he ran into the lobby. Cher's son, Elijah Blue Allman, had to be rushed to a California hospital over the weekend after an apparent overdose. Michael Kastner reports.
It happened Saturday in San Bernardino County, where deputies responded to a house after reports of a man acting erratically. The 48-year-old is currently undergoing medical care. Deputies said they found drugs inside the home, but no further details were given. Allman's father was the late music.
This one.
30 years in prison. Matthew Perry was found dead by his assistant
In late October 2023, court filings from prosecutors show it's anything that would bend the apple cart or cause any sort of disruption to the proceedings here. So this is something that he, suffice to say, didn't want to have happen here. But there was a recognition early on that there was not going to be kind of a broad joint communique, the likes of which we've seen at previous G7s and G20s. That wasn't going to happen here. There was a recognition that with the U.S. playing the role that it is today, it's unlikely that they would agree to all of the points, all of the policies that would be discussed by the members of the G7. So what we have instead are these kind of piecemeal agreements. The Middle East one is one of them. Ukraine is another. There's one on artificial intelligence and critical minerals. Countries can sign on to those if they want to, but again, there won't be this kind of overarching statement. And so it's an open question what that statement on Ukraine will look like. But as you indicated, no indication that the U.S. would sign on to that statement, especially since President Trump is leaving tonight.
David, thank you so much for that. Bloomberg correspondent David Gura in Banff, Alberta. Let's get perspective from Andrew Sliman, Senior Portfolio Manager and Head of Applied Equity Advisors at Morgan Stanley Investment Management. Good to have you with us. I'm just wondering how you're assessing all the risks right now. When you take a look at the pricing in the market, how much has been priced in already?
Well, my view, Ms. Linda, is that the economy going up. But companies have pulled their guidance for the year because of tariffs. But analysts are required to still give an outlook, and they've cut their numbers. So Q1 earnings turn out to be very strong, but the full year guidance has been very much negative. So the point of this is that there's an expectation that's embedded in stocks that the economy is going to weaken, earnings are going to weaken, but it hasn't happened yet. And I think that's why the stock market is back to the all-time high, because of the fact that Wall Street is being forced to ratchet up the numbers because of the strength of the economy. Now, this very much reminds me, Linda, of COVID, which is companies, pulled their guidance during COVID. Analysts were required to still give a number. They lowered their numbers, and it turned out to be too low. So I think this is the story of why the market has rallied so forcefully. It's tough to get bullish at these levels, but I think that explains why we're back to where we are.
The thing is, Andrew, as you said, markets at all-time highs, S&P at all-time highs. Where do you still find value? Can you still find value when value is already expensive?
Well, it depends on your time frame. First of all, the comment that U.S. exceptionalism is over, that's all. Anytime anyone says that to me, I always ask, why do you think that? It's all about politics. And I think what's going to happen next year is that the return on all this investment is going to pay off for these hyperscalers. So if your time frame is out a year, I think U.S. large cap tech will do very well. If your time frame is the next 3 months, I'm not so sure, because they're making investments now, but they haven't seen the return. We're about to loosen up the capital requirements of the big banks, and they're trading still at a 25% discount to the S&P. It's crazy, but that's because of great financial crisis. So I think there are opportunities, but again, we've had a very good run, and I could argue the positives and the negatives at this point.
It is interesting that you brought up big tech, because big tech is trading at 29 times projected profit. That's still higher than 10-year average. I mean, how do you keep buying big tech?
All right. But that includes, a couple of ridiculously priced, automatic car companies and so forth. Most of them, the valuation has come down. And what I'm saying is they have invested for the first time billions and billions of dollars. And they're telling us, because Linda, don't worry, we're going to make a return on this investment, but you haven't seen it yet.
And this is why the S&P has lagged the rest of the world, because the incremental return on invested capital of these very big companies is lower today than it's been in the past. But I wouldn't bet against them. And I think next year could be a story of where it pays off. And if that's the case, I think these companies will come roaring back and their earnings will reaccelerate. So right now you're seeing a growth slowdown because big investments haven't led to the return on it yet. I think it will next year.
I guess another big question is where the dollar goes from here. We saw the gains on Friday on the back of Israel's attack on Iran. I'm just wondering, it's already given up those gains. That story of a weakening dollar persists.
That's a tough one. I mean, I have been in this business for 35 years. I have yet to see anyone who can consistently predict currencies. So I look and say dollar's weak, probably is due for some correction. I wouldn't bet that the dollar goes down meaningfully forever. I think there's some political opinion driving the dollar lower. But at the end of the day, I try to stay very neutral on currencies because I have yet to see, a very good ability to predict, the currencies. And when I talk to people mostly about currency, it comes down to their political opinion. If they're bullish on America or bullish on Donald Trump, they think the dollar's going to strengthen. If they're bearish, they think this dollar's going to weaken.
As it stands now, though, Andrew, the dollar is weaker. It's expected to go weaker from here. As it stands now, according to the markets, so weaker dollar, higher oil, that must be playing into the Fed's calculations. How do you see the Fed moving from here?
Well, yes, it's very little movement in the Fed. So if that happens, well, then, it won't affect stocks. But if they actually move more aggressively to cut rates, that would substantially improve the stock market. And one of the things that I notice, and I'm not an investor as much in this area, but there is a persistent bid for these very speculative stocks. So the quantum computing stocks, the nuclear stocks, companies that have very little earnings, they continue to do well. Even on days where the market is lower, they continue to do well. So it does lead me to believe that the stock market is again saying, hey, we think there's a chance the Fed will cut more than what is perceptions. But you can't lose sight of the fact that kind of what I would call exuberant growth stocks, which was true in 2021, are coming back. And it scares me, but that's reality.
Andrew, hang tight. Andrew Sliman, Morgan Stanley Investment Management, is sticking around. Now, coming up, the London Bullion Market Association CEO Ruth Crowell will be joining us with her view on why gold's haven appeal endures despite the crypto fans touting Bitcoin and other crypto assets. And we get a view on how Iran and Israel will de-escalate before the conflict turns into a broader war. Author and U.S.-Iran relations expert Preeta Parsi will be joining us ahead. Keep it here with us. This is Bloomberg.
Switch over here. Oh my God! All right.
All of this, sooner or later, our victory will be your victory. How do we intend to achieve that victory? Well, we've already done great things. We've taken out their senior military leadership. We've taken out their senior technologists who are leading the race to build atomic weapons.
that would threaten us, but not only us. We've done all that and many other things, but we are also aware of the fact that there's more to be done. So we're preparing. We paved the way to Tehran, and our pilots over the skies of Tehran will deal blows to the Ayatollah regime that they cannot even imagine. And I can tell you this, we have indications that senior leaders in Iran are already packing their bags. They sense what's coming. I'll tell you what would have come if we hadn't acted. We had information that this unscrupulous regime was planning to give the nuclear weapons that they would develop to their terrorist proxies. That's nuclear terrorism on steroids. That would threaten the entire world. This is what Israel is doing with the support, the clear support of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the American people, and many others in the world. So with God's help, and with the goodwill and resolution of all free societies, we shall win.
Let's pray they do. Boy, everybody is keeping an eye right now on these movements. Also, on the flip side, there still continues to be so much domestic criticism of President Trump. A New York Times columnist was liking Trump's rhetoric to the Minnesota shooting. We just talked about that crazy guy who was going around shooting the state senators. And of course, the New York Times says, oh, it's Trump's fault. And all these other, no King's Day protests all over the country over the weekend, that's because of Trump. Trump's a king, Trump's a dictator, Trump's a Gestapo. Meanwhile, he has been, I think, especially when it's been coming to Iran, very clear, very strong, very measured, but also showing strength. And boy, what a mess we got into under Biden and Obama leading us to this moment. I'm so glad we have a commander-in-chief that, again, has clarity and focus and also sense as we're leading into what may be a really, really tough period. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Joaquin on line 5. Go ahead, Joaquin.
Good evening, Rita. I'm sorry, but I happen to think that we need to have a very swift and decisive victory. And, disclaimer, I'm just an average, ordinary guy, retired, disabled, was a truck driver for 43 years. But if it was me, I would give them the bunker buster bombs. There's so much on the table right now. This is really more of a 3D, 4D chess game. Because not only do you have Israel and Iran, then we got to worry about Russia and China. And actually, there's a globalist agenda that wants Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu out of the picture, in order to hand control. And I heard something tonight that just totally disturbed me. And when they talk about peace negotiations, the thought of possibly laying the blame of Gaza at the feet of Israel, this has to be straightened out. The Gaza belongs to Israel, hands down. The British took it from the Ottomans, who were allies to the Germans in World War I. And then, there was a green line draw after the war in 47, 48. The Israelis had natural law and international law. They were a free nation, a sovereign nation, but there's a green line that divided the territories. And after the war in 1967, basically the land, according to international law, became their land because they won it after they were attacked. So no matter what anybody wants to say, Gaza belongs to Israel. And you can see the way that the people in Gaza act, and even as far as the Iranians go, if you give them 1 minute of, any ceasefire, or peace talks, it only gives them, the time to regroup and reconstitute, and plan for bigger attacks. So,
well, that's why I think getting back to Iran too, Joaquin, that's why they need to go full throttle, because they can't mess around. They can't have this be, the future in 2 years or 2 months or 3 years, whatever it is. If you kind of halfway knock them out, but then they can reconstitute again, what's the point? And they'll come back even stronger than ever, which is why there cannot be any gray. And for so many years, Joaquin, I covered a lot of this. I remember when I was at Fox News covering so many of these layers, Joaquin, of like Obama and Bush and others, but particularly Obama and certainly Joe Biden. Oh, well, if they just do it for domestic energy, but they're not going to use it on others. That's like saying, that hand grenade over there, if they're just going to use it to play around with internally but never throw it at anybody, then we're okay. I mean, it was the most preposterous notion, and it clearly showed, I think, a naivete. And I agree with you that I think this moment very much was caused by softness, by giving them chance after chance after chance. And finally, even the IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Commission, that group, which is definitely not pro-Israel, the other day said that they are in complete dereliction, that Iran is completely not living up to it. And people who have talked to President Trump earlier, I was talking with Bill O'Reilly, and Bill was saying that in his conversations with President Trump just a few days ago, President Trump absolutely believes that Iran is on the precipice of a nuclear weapon. There's no doubt in President Trump's mind. And President Trump doesn't just say that for the heck of it. So he clearly, firmly believes that the axis of evil is extremely close to getting one. And he's made it clear he is not going to let that happen. He cannot let it happen. And this is where you need a leader with courage and guts of steel to make the right decision. And thank God President Trump is there, as opposed to, where's Jackie? Remember that line from Joe Biden? He couldn't even figure out who was in the room, let alone make such a critical decision as what President Trump will probably have to make in the next 24 hours. 1-800-848-9222. Everybody, we're going to continue your calls after the break.
You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
Life insurers put life into the things you live for. The new factory that's hiring your neighbors. Maintenance on the bridge that keeps traffic flowing. The paycheck that puts pizza night on the table. Life insurers contribute $8 trillion to communities and local economies through bond purchases and other investments, and protect the financial security of 90 million American families, like yours. See how life insurers put life into America at acli.com. Paid for by the American Council of Life Insurers.
1-877-CARS-FOR-KIDS. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877-CARS-FOR-KIDS. Donate your cars today.
Donate today at carsforkids.org. That's cars with a K. Your car can be picked up in the next day. Receive a tax deduction and vacation voucher.
1-877-CARS-FOR-KIDS.
Like speed, please, special like button.
Now accepting donations of land, homes, buildings, or any kind of real estate. Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at abacuspays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at abacuspays.com.
Sid Rosenberg here with big news. I'm going to Cyprus on June 22nd with my beautiful wife, Danielle, for our 33rd anniversary. We're going to the Cap St. George's Hotel and Resort. Beautiful beachside luxury, incredible restaurants, a world-class spa, even a nightclub. George's Ranch offers horse riding by the sea, which guests can arrange through Cap St. George's Hotel and Resort concierge team. Visit capstgeorges.com.
This is the Rita Cosby Show on 77 WABC. Earlier on Katz and Cosby, we spoke with Tricia McLaughlin, the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. We talked about the massive anti-ICE protests taking place across America and how we need to stand strong with our law enforcement, our brave men and women on the front lines.
You know, we are concerned, and we have seen a 400% increase in assaults against our ICE law enforcement officers. And, you know, this is part of the reason we need the big, beautiful bill to pass in Congress, is because we need additional resources. That bill would provide the funding to have 10,000 additional ICE enforcement officers on the ground. We're just seeing these riots, as you said, they're being outnumbered, they're being exhausted, they have no
Ay, ay, ay,
being thrown at them. Just generally assault.
Yeah.
It's despicable to watch, but I do think Americans should be
Oh,
incredibly proud
my
of
God.
our brave ICE enforcement officers, our Marines, our National Guard. Who
Oh, my
really
God.
such
Fuck it right, you
passion
found
and
out.
hatred, and it's so at the hands of these riders, they have stood with such patriotism and dignity, and it does make me so proud to be an American
What in
leader.
the figure? Allah, gonna come down on you
A
and
broader theme we're seeing go on with
Baboom.
Democrats is so many of them are just rudderless. They don't have a message, and they're doubling down on everything that they
Oh,
lost
man, that's a
in
fucking classic
2024,
right
whether
there.
it be mass illegal immigration,
Oh,
like we
my
see
God.
Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass continuing to fight for, saying they're not going to end these riots until we stop doing ICE raids, which of course the president has been clear. We're not going to stop. We're going to continue to get the
Man, fuck it. Let them burn down your city.
off of our streets. But then you also see
Let them
it
keep
with
riding. Let them burn down your city.
men
That's
and
all.
women's sports and the weaponization of the
Oh, my
law
God,
and
this
of
is
law
funny.
enforcement that now we're seeing with this.
You know,
This is why Donald Trump left.
nobody got hurt, but you know,
So,
hey,
I think we are seeing increased
preaching that
amount
death
of
to America
cooperation,
shit.
especially when it comes to this
Death
287
to
D
Israel
program that
shit.
we've been
Hey,
telling
now they
deputies
knocking on
in
your
state
door.
and local law enforcement
You
to
know,
really carry out these
that's what happened,
immigration
man.
enforcement operations. We know
Action
there are
had
communities,
consequences,
we know
man.
where a lot of these
You guys
illegal
keep thumbing the
aliens are being
nose
harbored, and so we can really
on Israel and the
target
United
them
States.
in a
That's what
very
happens.
specific way.
It's not
So
Biden. It's
we
not
have been
Biden.
seeing
There's no
increased
Biden here no more.
increased
Donald
cooperation,
Trump
but we
said,
want to see more of that.
you know
We
what,
want to
bomb the
see
shit
more
out
of
of
New
them.
York City. We want to
That's
see more
it.
out of Los Angeles, which of course we have not. And
We got a
Chicago
real
as
president
well.
now.
That's what the president spoke about last night in his Truth Social.
He give you everything you want now.
Listening to much more ahead.
Take care
right
of business.
Here on the Rita Cosby Show on 77
You know?
WABC.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
It's Trump's America now. It's not Biden's America. Benjamin Netanyahu. No.
Well,
Meaning-
we saw President Trump, and
Meaning-
there was a powerful might shown on the streets of Washington, D.C. on Saturday. I thought it was beautiful. I love a parade, and I was glued. But listen to this military historian, Richard Cohn, on PBS.
And the attention, you know, given what's going on in Los Angeles and what, given the president's threats, are really not the way we have commemorated our military.
Let's shut up.
No, they're not. Not Richard. You got the wrong one. Actually, you know what? Let's also play this one, too. Let's play number 3. This is Steve Anderson. And he's over the weekend at MSNBC, of course. And he had a few choice words for President Trump, too.
As I knew they would, and they always do. Having said that, it was a colossal waste of time, effort, and money. We don't need. That's not who we are. We don't do these kinds of things. We don't march down the streets like that. We prove ourselves and our value as an army, our strength as an army, through our actions, not parades. That's something that dictators do. And I think the money that was spent, I mean, it's colossal when you think about it. $45 million is what the White House admits to. But this town was shut down for 3 days. It's still shut down out there. You can't get across the 14th Street Bridge, for instance. And you shut down the airport for 3.5 hours. You know, the tens of millions of dollars of inconveniences that were created. The town, Uber drivers are complaining. You know, the hotels have been shut down. I mean, you can't get around. And so there's a tremendous cost associated with that. We have to fix all the roads, by the way.
Oh, you sound like a pussy, don't you?
Yeah, we're going to have to fix the roads. After there was an enormous parade celebrating America, and guess how much the Army recruiting every year? $3 billion. The Army spends an enormous amount of money. Think about that every single year to promote and get other people recruited. The Army is way ahead of schedule. They are 4 months ahead of schedule. How incredible is that? 4 months in their recruiting, because people can't wait to sign up to the U.S. Army, the greatest fighting force in the world. So it was worth every cent. Eric Trump after the break, guys.
Donate now to toysfortots.org. Working year-round, delivering hope to children at Christmas time and beyond. In 2024, Toys for Tots provided over 30 million toys to nearly 13 million children in need. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org. Since 1947, Toys for Tots has distributed 708 million toys to 314 million deserving children. Working year-round. Toys for Tots. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.
Coming up at 5 a.m. on the 77 WABC News Hour with Noam Laden.
Will twerking teens ever have to pay for the chaos they cause?
I'm shocked. I'm still in shock. People were jumping up and down on this truck. $3,000 for that to happen out of the blue. You know, that's very disheartening to see something like that.
That story and more at 5.
The 77 WABC News Hour. Weekday mornings at 5 before Sid and Friends in the Morning. 77 WABC.
Larry Kudlow here with an urgent retirement warning. Trump's return is set to usher in a new golden age, but growing trade tensions and China's ruthless attack on the dollar have rattled the markets. That's why Warren Buffett just dumped $133 billion in stocks. That's why thousands of informed IRA and 401k savers are now shielding their savings with gold. And the experts at Colonial Metals Group are the only folks I trust to help you do the same thing. Visit freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908. That's 800-621-3908. You'll get a free gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth with gold tax-free. Plus, see if you qualify for a free home safe and as much as $7,500 in free silver. Once again, that's freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 right now.
This is Rabbi Joseph Chesnick of the New York Board of Rabbis. And this is Reverend Eyal Bernard from the Christian Cultural Center. Listen to The Rev and the Rabbi
every Sunday morning at 7
on 77 WABC.
You matter, and so does your well-being. Call, text, or chat 988, New Jersey Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, for free 24/7 support with mental health, suicide, or substance use concerns for you or someone you love. A message from the New Jersey Department of Human Services.
Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
One Tough Cop with Bo Dietl.
He's the commissioner of the Nassau County Police Department. Patrick, welcome to the show. Every cop kills off. These are the same officers that took the job and had children that never was able to have Christmas with them or grandchildren, see a grandchild. At what point do you draw the line? We're feeling bad about this, but everyone's out of jail. It's got to irk your stomach.
What irks me is that those that want to judge us will not do our jobs. They want to sit there and pass judgment everything you do, but they won't even put on the uniform for one day and walk a street. The same people that are sitting and passing judgment and changing these laws and making it harder on us, they signed up to serve the public as a whole, not individual little groups. And if they took a step back and say, hey, is my law that I'm about to pass going to help my community or hurt my community? It's going to hurt your community.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform. This is 77 WABC Newsroom Extra.
The House has approved legislation that seeks to make sure government-backed small business loans are only going to citizens. Congressman Roger Williams of Texas says this fits with President Trump's America First agenda.
For 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration, the SBA approved loans for illegal immigrants.
Earlier this week, the House passed a different bill that bans local SBA offices from sanctuary cities. Congressman Williams says the legislation will require citizenship verification before any small business loan is approved.
To ensure that taxpayer-backed loans only go to American entrepreneurs.
The bill is now in the hands of the Senate. I'm Lisa Ritchie for 77 WABC News.
Cosby is on. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, the Trump Organization had a huge announcement just a few hours ago. And also, it's the big anniversary of that moment where they came down the escalator. John, why don't you bring in Eric Trump?
The anniversary when President Trump came down those escalators. Well, we had a similar situation today. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, they came down the escalators and they had the greatest deal of the century. With us today is Eric Trump and Rita. You're sitting next to Eric. Eric, tell us the big deal of the day.
You're
We're really excited, guys. About our fight. You've been a friend for a very long time. Ripping off of Twitter, Facebook, all the social handles. Then you saw what the banks tried to do to us just because they didn't like our political affiliation, and so that's why we got into World Liberty Financial and and DeFi in the crypto world. And today we're really excited. We launched Trump Mobile, and so it kind of brings all the ecosystems together. We're going to do mobile.
Bring it home, baby.
Cheaper, more efficiently, better coverage than anybody. And so we launched Trump Mobile.
Right to your studio.
We're gonna have phones, hopefully by the end of the year, that are made in America, for Americans, by Americans. American customer service, all done out of St. Louis, Missouri. With features that you won't find on any other phones, and we're really excited about it. Again, kind of bring power back to the Americans, bring power back to the people in this country, and we're super excited about Trump Mobile.
Well, we're very excited about your father too.
Oh my God, you can't make this shit up, man.
Business to America. And that's where it belongs. I mean, it's not fair that 86% or 90% of our antibiotics are made by China. I mean, that is ludicrous.
And John, the problem is, honestly, you've got a media in this country, the New York Times, every time I read one of their papers, you can't produce anything in the United States anymore. It's like, you can't because you guys are all, first of all, you're all incompetent. And second of all, you've got a bad attitude. You make people believe that America can't produce the best products in the world better and more efficiently than anybody else, especially when it comes to high-tech products. I mean, every day Elon Musk is sending another rocket 250 miles in the air and much more than that. Right? And then catching them, on massive gantries. We're doing that here in America. We can do high-tech innovation better than anybody. We can do AI innovation better than anybody. We can do data centers and power.
We besieged them.
In the world. The notion we can't make
and they're right, like
in this
2
country,
blocks
and they
away.
all have to be made in Timbuktu.
Oh my God!
Is asinine, right? And by the way, John, there's plenty of products that we shouldn't make in America. There's plenty of widgets that we don't need to make in America.
God,
low-cost junk. Let that be made somewhere else. But how in the world do we control microchips? How in the world we don't control communications, especially in kind of the cyber hacking age that we're all dealing with, right? We better be producing that stuff in this country, and we can, and we will. And this family believes, and we're really excited about this. Again, I believe we can do it better, cheaper, more efficiently than anybody else, with better service from Americans, by Americans, to Americans, not going through some call center in Bangladesh. Whereas you saw what happened with the major hack last week. The call centers were selling people's personal information, which caused obviously massive financial problems for a lot of people. Let's do our own customer service, and let's do that right here in Missouri or plenty of other states. But let's take back control of this process and let's return things to American soil, and that's what we're doing today.
We agree. United States of America, and part of America is, I guess, Canada. Can you make a deal with the United States and Canada? Because between the two of us, I think we're unbeatable.
Well, I've always said that, John, and the good news about me is I have nothing to do with politics anymore. I retired on November 6th when we won the election. We won the Super Bowl, and that was my time being up. But I always say that, first of all, we'd be unstoppable in certain things, like how about like the Winter Olympics in hockey, right? There's a million things that. But joking aside, we should be one. You have a lot of adversaries around the world, and you know very well because you're in the business world, and I know very well. And you have a lot of countries that want to eat our lunch, and we can't allow that to happen. We need to remain the superpower of the world. We need to, remain above reproach, and no one can even come close to catching us. And I think that just from a purely, from a national security standpoint, from an economic standpoint, Obviously, the United States of America, by far the world's largest economy, it's not even close. Then you add Canada in there. I mean, the competition wouldn't even be fair to everybody else. And I think there's a lot of benefits tremendous benefits to Canada. I mean, Canada is one of the highest tax nations in the world. Canada obviously wants, the military protection. Canada has unbelievable natural resources that can be, entered into our economy and into the ecosystem. There's great benefits to them as well, but I really believe the U.S. and Canada would be unstoppable together. And, I think we should harness those partnerships and those relationships, especially when, the sum of each is much more accretive.
It's greater for the whole.
When combined.
Absolutely. I mean, I had the Minister of Energy on Sunday on our show, and North America. America is Canada and the United States. Rita?
And Eric, what I think is so amazing about your father, he is truly pushing peace through strength. One of the things, at Trump Tower today, of course, the big announcement of Trump Mobile, it's all about America. But that really is his message. And now he's going to bring us into World War III on so many fronts.
Isn't it nice that we're not entering World War III? I mean, I know I'm certainly proud of it, and I believe in, obviously, Iran obviously never even coming close to getting a nuclear weapon. That can never happen. No one will ever allow that to happen. But you have the neocons in this country who has pushed us into every single war. And isn't it really nice to see somebody take a very measured approach and say, I'm not going to let my sons and daughters go overseas to die. I'm not going to exert trillions of dollars to fight endless wars for 20 years when it just benefits the people in Washington, D.C. and the industrial military complex. I'm going to be very, very, very slow and steady and very methodical. And I'm going to push for peace. No different than I'm pushing for peace in Russia and Ukraine. I'm going to push for peace between Israel and Iran, and my father's hell bent on that mission. Now he's also hell bent making sure that Iran will never get a nuclear weapon, because that simply cannot happen under any circumstance. I love this approach, and I love somebody who goes in there and roots out fraud, waste, and abuse. I love somebody who goes in there and proposes the largest tax cuts for American people, wants to have inflation come down massively, wants to get interest rates down massively, which only further obviously benefits people's ability to buy a home and afford, kind of the American dream. And so I love seeing him in there. I love seeing him fight as hard as he is. I love seeing him come to the defense of these cities. You're not going to burn down our cities, and you're not going to throw rocks at cop cars. And we're going to return to a nation of faith and safety and security, a nation that loves our law enforcement, a nation that loves and respects our military, a nation that's not ripped off by every country around the world, a nation that will always be the number one superpower on earth. And he goes in, he fights for that each and every day, guys. And as a son, I could not be more proud. On the 10-year anniversary of him coming down that escalator, which is today, I could not be more proud of everything he's doing.
Eric, this is the period of common sense. Because common sense, what I tell my Democratic friends? I said common sense is more important than anything. It's not about left, it's not about right, it's common sense. And I look for my Democratic common sense people to do the right thing by America, because the bizarro Democrats are not allowing them to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Common sense is everything, John, and that rules the day. And I think we finally have a president who believes in common sense. And he's going to make America great again. That's all he's ever wanted. That's all he's ever promised. He's going to make America great again. And I'm incredibly proud and honored to be back on the show with you, John. And I love you. And you've been an amazing friend for a very long time. And keep talking common sense to everybody that listens. You have a massive audience, and I know everybody.
I talk to your dad too, and I tell him we got to keep the common sense. And one last question is, how do people sign up, and what do they do?
Go to TrumpMobile.com. TrumpMobile.com. You can get an eSIM card. Incredibly simple. TrumpMobile.com. It takes 2 minutes, and again, you can use your existing phone. You can get a new phone. But TrumpMobile.com, and it's really special.
Eric and your brother Donald, I wish you're going to make your first big and faster than your dad did.
Bravo!
Great being with you, John.
Thank you. Keep fighting hard for America. Thank you.
We will.
Love that interview, and it was very neat seeing Eric Trump today. And again, everybody, TrumpMobile.org. I love the fact that it's unlimited calling in countries where we have military bases. That just is the clear message of America first, and obviously always supporting our military too. And they're doing roadside assistance and medical and all this stuff. Leave it to the Trump guys to come up with some more innovative and very important America first products. Bravo, bravo, bravo. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And of course, tonight, so much happening. Protests are continuing in several cities tonight, but also many people on edge as President Trump has left the G7 in Canada. He will be arriving at any moment to the White House and is said to be going into the Situation Room as everybody is bracing to see what is going to happen, and word that some major action is going to be taking place in Iran. President Trump telling people to get out of Iran. Obviously, something big is in the works. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, and you are listening to the Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to Reggie in Texas. Reggie, what are your thoughts tonight?
Well, hey, Miss Rita. Well, first of all, I think there comes a situation where circumstances dictate what has to be done. And I think the Israelis have already gotten a taste that they're an American election away from being completely screwed on any deal to make Iran do anything. And I think they know that in 3 years, that if these pink hairs take over, there's not only a chance they won't be funded, there's a good chance they might even support the Iranians. That's crazy. This country, go and look at the ALC. So I think they're realizing that they need to strike, and they need to strike now. This is also an opportunity. The American military, just being sort of selfish, the American military should be the one putting their foot on the throat of these guys when they go down for the Marine barracks attack, for all the IEDs, the American soldiers, the embassies. I understand the Israelis can be the main force in the attack, but we should play a part, because when this thing's over, we should be the main player in this, because they've really hurt us these last 45 years.
Yeah, they really have. And you're right. You go back to the Marine barracks. I mean, that was just a horrible, brutal attack. And they have clearly played a huge role on attacks. Look at even the Houthis firing consistently on U.S. troops. Hezbollah, as you brought up, Hamas. And let's not forget also, even on October 7th, Reggie, there were Americans that were taken prisoner. There were Americans that were killed. Luckily they're out now, but there's still, many people that are still held hostage. But there were a lot of Americans that were also killed on October 7th because they're living there in Israel. So they don't care. They chant. You see on the streets, they chant death to America, death to Israel. It's like one and the same to them. So it would be fitting if the United States is involved. The issue is, of course, and nobody wants to rush to war, Reggie. I mean, that's the big issue. And how much can Israel do it alone? The big thing tonight is about these, bunker busting bombs, the cluster bombs. And I was looking at information on these bunker busters, why they're so important. They can penetrate up to 200 feet deep underground. That's a big, big deal. By the way, they are massive, apparently. 20 feet long, 30,000 pounds is what they weigh. Think about that. That's extraordinary. And again, they can go 200 feet deep. And a lot of these Iranian nuclear facilities are extremely deep. Some of the biggest ones that they have are literally underground. And that's why they may need America to be able to win this fight, not just for America, but truly for the world, Reggie, as we're talking about. Wow, wow, wow. Let's go to Norm in Brooklyn. Go ahead, Norm, on line 5. Your thoughts, Norm?
Yeah, hi, Rita. Yes, I support giving Netanyahu whatever Israel needs, bunker busters, whatever types of weaponry is required. I am concerned about spillover, obviously. I am concerned about a larger war. On a personal level, I am a bit guilty. I have not been to Israel since 1978. I spent quite a large portion of my childhood there. I was there on 3 occasions, totaling almost a year, and I'm feeling guilty. And now, of course, I can't go because there's no travel now to Israel.
I went, Norm, a couple years ago, and I'm so thankful I did go because for the reason you just said, look at the situation there now. But you know what? Let's pray, Norm. Let's absolutely pray that things get better and you can go there and it can be a peaceful place once again. I pray, guys, that Iran, the regime changes, however it happens. I pray that the Iranian people live in peace. And I have not been to Iran. I mentioned to you guys, I've been invited a number of different times from various leaders throughout the time, and I've never gone. But I would be interested to go. I'd love to go to a peaceful Iran, though. That would be the great way to go because I've heard it's a beautiful country. I've heard the people are great. Obviously not the leadership, but the people are great. And let's pray that they have peace so many of us can go there and visit. And let's pray that you can also go back to Israel. I'm glad you went at one point, Norm, but I do hope you get a chance to go back there again really soon. Norm, thank you very much. Everybody, we're going to continue your calls after the break on this very busy news night as President Trump is rushing back to the United States, heading back to the White House and weighing some very big decisions. In fact, he even used that phrase, something big is in the works. And now to our Support Our Heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a powerful story from Franklin County, Pennsylvania, where 104 years ago, the year was 1921, the average cost of gas, by the way, guys, was 29 cents a gallon. Can you imagine that? 29 cents a gallon. Babe Ruth was in the prime of his baseball career, and U.S. Air Force World War II veteran Samuel Worley of Franklin County, Pennsylvania, was born. He served in the U.S. Air Force in World War II. He said he was attending university, and I was drafted in the university in 1942. September 19th, 1942. He remembers the day. And he served from then till October 31st, 1945. They gave a big tribute honoring him with a big parade, well deserved for a member of the greatest generation. It included many dozens of motorcycles and also many other people and old cars. And also a few old tanks also on the streets there. Worley said it was a heartwarming experience. And he said, quote, I hope I'm around next year so I can come back and they can all see me again. And I hope so too. And everybody, help America to never ever forget. Donate just $11 a month to the Great Tunnel to Towers Foundation at T2T.org. Iran, 2T.org.
That's local time.
You're listening to
Israel.
The Rita Cosby Show.
3:53
joined the
GMT
United
time.
States Marine Corps after being inspired by his grandfather. James loved being a Marine, but his
What's over here? It's
life was saved
11:53.
forever during a training exercise. James lost consciousness and nearly drowned. The incident resulted in brain injury that left James blind, unable to use his body, susceptible to memory loss, and more. Help heroes like James. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Greg Kelly here for Colonial Metals Group, China's leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II, one that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/Kelly or call 800-655-5186 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war in the term life industry. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man aged 45, non-smoker, can get $1 million of coverage for $75 per month. Level rate for 10 years. Or a man aged 50, non-smoker, can obtain $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of $110. Level rate for 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rate for 20 years. If you're a smoker, we have great rates available for you as well. At Term Busters, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. If you're looking for a new or replacement term life insurance, call today for a quote. 800-786-9161. You're probably paying more than you should. Call 1-800-786-9161. Remember, 1-800-786-9161. Sample rate quotes based on preferred non-smoker rate class. Exam required to qualify.
Now, the latest from the 77 WABC newsroom.
Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman is addressing a wind project off the shore of Long Island. The Trump White House recently lifted a stop work order on Empire Wind, and Blakeman appeared on the Cats Roundtable where he spoke about the issue.
Well, I'm very much against it, John. I think it's a terrible idea. It was a project that was started by President Biden and Governor Hochul against community opposition. People on Long Island do not want these turbine windmills, and they don't want these big storage battery facilities, these lithium batteries in their communities as well. So here's how we got there. They forced through a contract with a company, I believe they're from the Netherlands, called Equinor. Equinor is a foreign company that is in the business of building these windmills. It was with the support of Hochul and Biden. Basically, it was rammed down our throats.
Blakeman says that the work stoppage being lifted was part of a larger trade-off.
And then they wanted to start what they called Empire 2, which was another project off of Long Island that would create all kinds of problems for marine life, for fishermen, for the environment. And basically, the problem is that Empire 1, the permits were already given out under the Biden administration. So President Trump wanted to cancel Empire 2, which he did, and we congratulate him for that, through Lee Zeldin, who's the administrator of the EPA, and he wanted to pause Empire 1.
You can hear more from the Cats Roundtable Sunday mornings from 8 to 10 a.m. or listen to the show anytime as a podcast on the WABC radio app. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And of course, we are keeping an eye on the Middle East as so much is happening there. President Trump again putting out messages saying, evacuate Tehran, evacuate Tehran. And this comes as China is telling its citizens to leave Israel. Russia also telling its citizens to leave Israel. Clearly, the Middle East is on edge, and something major could be happening in a matter of hours. Also, the U.S. may be giving those bunker buster bombs. That would be a biggie, and especially as President Trump comes back, it seems like there is clearly a sense of urgency and a sense of this could be the moment to change history. Let's go to Tony in Clifton real quick. Tony, your thoughts real quick on line 3.
Hi, Rita. You know, I wanted to say to everyone out there that when President Trump came into office, it wasn't the same way he left it with respect to Iran, and that's what makes this all different. Iran was sealed up and ready by the Biden administration, and we need to fix it. And we pray for President Trump tonight.
Yeah, we are praying for him big time, praying for Israel big time, and also I pray that the good people of Iran, not the mullahs or the Ayatollah, I pray they're going to be free very soon.
This is New
New York's talk leader, the crown jewel of talk radio. WABC New York, WRCR Haverstraw, 1071 WLIR Hampton Bays. News first at 59 past the hour. 77 WABC News starts now.
Turn tomorrow to the Brian Blair Show. We'll hear how the Trump administration
Videos of Iranian state TV during a live broadcast. The anchor jumps from her desk and smoke and rubble can be seen anywhere in the street.
From the financial capital of the world, broadcasting 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is WBBR New York, Bloomberg 1130.
Good morning. This is Horizon's Middle East and Africa. Our top stories this morning. President Trump calls for the immediate evacuation of Tehran. That comes hours after urging Iran to sign a deal to limit its nuclear program, and Israel signaled strikes would continue. As Trump leaves the G7 meeting early, the other leaders issue a joint statement urging a broader de-escalation of hostilities in the Middle East, including a ceasefire in Gaza. And Bank of Japan holds rates at 0.5%, but will churn bond purchases by 200 billion yen per quarter, starting in April 2026. It has just gone 8 a.m. across the Emirates. I'm Joanna Versace in Dubai. Another morning, geopolitics still front and center. It is moving fast, very fast-moving news cycle over here in the region with the latest between Iran and Israel, and the fact that President Trump has decided to leave the G7 meeting earlier than expected to deal with the situation in the Middle East. So how are markets reacting this morning? As you can see behind me, both the S&P and the Nasdaq futures are tilted towards the red, down about 0.3 respectively. Not a significant amount, but still does tell you that there's somewhat of a reaction to the latest and the fact that things continue to escalate between Iran and Israel over the course of the last 4 or 5 days. The USD not seeing so much of a bit today. We're trading sideways. Not a lot of movement, though we have seen in the past 24 hours money pour in to the safe haven alongside other safe havens, including the price of gold, which is getting very close back to all-time record highs once again. And then Brent, you can see this morning up once again, up about 0.5%. This as well after President Trump put out a tweet or a post, I should say, on Truth Social calling for the full evacuation of Tehran. So not really mincing his words there. On the back of that, we did see a bit of movement in the price of oil. And speaking of oil, just want to show our terminal chart today, which is telling you how much upside volatility has been priced in to the options market for oil. And you can see that implied vol on Brent is the highest level it's been since 2022. And of course, back in 2022, that was when the Russian invasion of Ukraine kicked off. So we are at implied volatility levels we're not seen in 3 years in the energy complex. Okay, we're also keeping track of central bank decisions this week, a major week for central banks, but Bank of Japan are really kicking things off. We just got the meeting out of the Bank of Japan. No surprise really on the interest rate decision, April, but how are some of these Japanese assets reacting, particularly because they have announced that they're going to be trimming bond purchases from April 2026?
Yeah, Joanna, I mean, as you know, the job of central banks, including Japan's, has gotten very complicated of late because of the bond market ructions, I should say, as well as what we're seeing in the oil price spikes and the worries about cost-push inflation. So today, the BOJ decision, it left rates unchanged. This was as expected, but the concern was actually more about how we would slow the pace of tapering, and indeed, this was it acted according to what markets expected, and it will slow the pace from April of next year. Now, the problem was that there was actually a hawkish holdout. It wasn't a unanimous decision. So JGBs will likely remain on offer, and we are seeing already JGB futures sliding. In terms of dollar yen, we didn't get much support from the BOJ, so the focus will shift to Reuters Pressa later today. Joanna.
As always, April Hong, thank you so much. That was April in Singapore. Now, President Donald Trump will depart the Group of Seven Leaders Summit, the G7 Leaders Summit in Canada a day early. It comes hours after he took to social media to call for the evacuation of Iran's capital, Tehran.
President, why are you leaving the G7 early for Washington?
Very important.
For more, let's bring in Bloomberg correspondent David Gura, who is inbound for the G7 meeting. I know it's late over there, David. Good to have you with us on the show. It's no surprise, really, that the developments in the Middle East have eclipsed this G7 summit. Perhaps what was a bit of a surprise is the fact that President Trump has decided to cut it short and is leaving one day early. What do we know about this decision and the statement that has just come through from the G7 vis-a-vis the latest developments in the Middle East?
So you're absolutely right that this cast a long shadow over these meetings, and it wasn't part of the official agenda, but it was something that was talked about an awful lot as world leaders made their way to Canada and on the sidelines of the meetings today as well. And there was this hope throughout the day that all of these world leaders would be able to come together and issue a statement on this conflict in the Middle East, effectively telling Iran and Israel to de-escalate that conflict. And for most of the day, it seemed like the United States was not going to be a signatory to that particular statement. President Trump said he didn't want to. He began to talk more and more about diplomacy is the only track forward here. We know that before he left, before he had dinner with everyone gathered here, all of the G7 leaders posed for that family photograph that's part of all of these gatherings, he did sign on to that document, and in it they affirm that Israel has a right to defend itself. The group reiterated its support for the security of Israel, called out Iran for being a source of terror, said it should never have a nuclear weapon, and then, quote, urged the resolution of the Iranian crisis that leads to a broader de-escalation of hostilities in the Middle East, including a ceasefire in Gaza. That last clause is something that the Europeans were really pushing for over the course of the summit thus far. And there's also a nod in that statement, if you'll allow me to read just a bit more here, to market volatility. We will remain vigilant to the implications for international energy markets and stand ready to coordinate, including with like-minded partners, to safeguard market stability. So the second part of your question, why this happened, why the president decided to leave, the official line from the White House is he needed to get back to Washington to deal with this crisis. And that, of course, Jemana, opens up this broader question of what does that mean? Are we going to see the U.S. administration, the Trump administration, becoming more involved militarily in this conflict, or is it going to be something the likes of which we heard from President Emmanuel Macron, who speculated kind of optimistically that the U.S. could play a role here as a peacemaker, could call for a temporary pause in hostilities, get some ceasefire in place. We'll see what happens. The president isn't due back in Washington until very early in the morning Washington time.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, David, it can go in either direction at this point. But the hope from the American and, of course, the international community is that there's going to be a push from the U.S. side to restart those diplomatic channels. Let's just go back to the G7 because ostensibly many of the talks that were scheduled to take place were going to be around trade and the so-called trade deals that the U.S. administration has been pushing for. Has there been any success on that front?
Yeah, that was the hope, certainly on the U.S. part going into these talks before that conflict in the Middle East escalated. And of course, at a summit like this, there were so many opportunities for each of these nations to talk on the sidelines, have these bilateral meetings. Some of that has taken place here. There weren't a whole lot of bilateral meetings involving the U.S. president, but there were some. And we saw the U.S. and the United Kingdom codify this deal that was announced a few weeks back in the Oval Office in Washington, D.C. Not a hugely comprehensive trade deal, but one that the White House holds up as a sign of progress in sort of rewriting the rules of trade between the U.S. and a close ally. Yes, the hope was we'd see more of that. The president did sit down with the Prime Minister of Japan, who was very outspoken about the fact that he wanted to have that audience with President Trump, wanted to talk about trade. And somewhat disappointingly to the Japanese, there was no agreement reached. There's talk of there being continued progress in those talks. But that deal between the U.S. and the U.K., which for so many weeks has been the only thing the White House has been able to hold up as a trade deal, since the president announced that trade war now a couple of months ago, is really the only one that we have yet. So it was signed by the Prime Minister and the President, but nothing beyond that yet. And now with President Trump gone, unlikely that we'll see anything more here. We did hear some good rhetoric from the Canadians that they're hoping over the next 30 days they'll be able to reach some sort of agreement, but nothing more concrete.
Bloomberg correspondent David Gora in Banff, Alberta, Canada. Great to have you with us on the show. Thank you for the overview. Now, Israel is vowing to pursue its military operations against Iran, regardless of the progress of any potential negotiations involving the U.S. Ron Dermer, Israel's Minister for Strategic Affairs, told Bloomberg Television Israel will continue to act until it eliminates Iran's missile and nuclear programs.
We're going to go about our operation to remove these two threats. Whether Iran will decide to meet with the United States and agree to terms that they should have taken a month ago or 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, that's up to Iran to decide.
Joining us now is Shibli Tilhami, Anwar Sadat Professor for Peace and Development at the University of Maryland, College Park, and a non-resident senior fellow at the Brookings Institute for Middle East Policy. Really good to have you with us on the show. Look, two developments have happened over the course of this morning. The first is that President Trump decided to leave the G7 summit early, presumably to focus on the events that are taking place in the Middle East between Iran and Israel. But simultaneously, he also put out a post on Truth Social warning Tehran residents to evacuate. How do you dovetail the two and a real push from the international community to restart the diplomatic channels, but at the same time, President Trump warning Iranian residents to leave their homes in the capital?
Yes, it was surprising. Yeah, I was surprised by it. It's definitely echoing the Israeli call for Tehran residents to evacuate. And it's really peculiar to take that posture, which is essentially echoing the demand of Israel at a time when you're also saying you're going to negotiate a deal, you're going to mediate between the two parties. I cannot tell you that I have a full understanding of how our president operates. And I see that as someone who studied him. I have a book forthcoming with some colleagues addressing his first administration, and we've had lots of interviews with people who work with him closely, his top advisors who gave us interviews. And, he's really an unpredictable man. He doesn't follow the issues very carefully. He takes positions impulsively, and then everybody has to adjust. He doesn't always consult. So what he meant by this is really hard to know. The best that I can tell is that he thinks of himself as using this as pressure to maybe still make a deal. The problem that I always had, I don't think he had intended from the beginning to be drawn into a war. He understood, I think, that the Israelis were trying to throw him into war, but I think he put himself on a slippery slope, particularly making demands that the Iranians could meet, and I fear that he's doing the same now.
So my colleague spoke to Ron Dermer yesterday, and he was saying that Israel is still pursuing twin goals to eliminate Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities. The National Security Advisor for the Israeli government also gave an interview yesterday to the Israeli army, where he said that he still thinks that Iran are sitting on thousands of ballistic missiles. We also know that many of the uranium enrichment facilities are deeply embedded, particularly in the Fordo nuclear enrichment sites. Therefore, it's going to be difficult for Israel to achieve those two aims in a quick fashion. What is the likelihood that this becomes yet another Gaza situation and a war that just goes on indefinitely in order to achieve those two aims?
Put aside what Israeli officials do. Of course, I'm not an official, I'm an analyst, and they can say what they want, and they have to say what they want. This is part of their foreign policy. But the truth of the matter is this war was unnecessary. It could have been avoided. A deal could have been made. There was a deal already that Obama administration had negotiated, that the rest of Europe accepted, the rest of the world accepted, from which President Trump withdrew during his first administration. They could have had another deal similar to that. And obviously, this war happened just a couple of days before there was a planned meeting between the American negotiators and the Iranian negotiators. So this was an unnecessary, unfortunate, ruinous war. So put that aside. Now we're in it. And yes, you're right. I think that the Israelis obviously have very, very great capabilities supplied by the U.S. They're using the top American weapons that practically no one else other than Israel and the U.S. and NATO have.
Look around, found out.
They
Now
have
you're finding
excellent
out.
capabilities, but they cannot finish a war because, number one, they cannot end Iran's nuclear capabilities. They can damage it, but they can't end it. And number two, they can't end the weapons program of Iran. And so then what? What do? Even if they were to destroy what Iran has, what do they do then? So I think the third aim they have, which has already been stated, and you didn't mention, obviously the officials didn't mention, is regime change. This has been something that Prime Minister Netanyahu has wanted to do for years, not just recently, and now it's become more pressing for them because they didn't see a win in some ways that they could sell to the public without that. And the U.S. has been not favoring, including President Trump. President Trump has said he doesn't want to, regime change and nation building. But I think now it's become a real possibility of trying to do just that.
Shebly, really good to have you on, and looking forward to speaking to you in the coming weeks and months as things evolve. Shebly Tilhami, Anwar Sadat Professor for Peace and Development at the University of Maryland, College Park, and a non-resident senior fellow at the Brookings Institute Center for Middle East Policy. Thank you. Now, still ahead, Deutsche Bank says rising geopolitical tensions have taken center stage for global markets as rising tensions between Iran and Israel show no signs of abating. More on their market strategy next. This is Bloomberg.
Bringing you the latest news in private markets whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Kriti Gupta in the south of France, and this is Bloomberg.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets? We are basically deep in the European earnings season. Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets. In case you missed it on the Pulse.
Well, there's no doubt that the USAID payment cutoffs that Elon drove have resulted in dramatic increase in childhood death, and children that would have been protected from getting HIV from their mothers during birth, that money's been cut off.
Don't miss the Pulse, live every weekday. Bringing you up-to-the-minute financial and geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Chelsea Macron in Davos, Switzerland, and this is Bloomberg.
Our global headquarters in New York, I'm Jamie Berger. Welcome to Bloomberg Brief. Let's set your agenda.
Bloomberg Brief delivers the market news, data, and analysis you need live every weekday, only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Johanna Bersachi in Dubai. Global markets fluctuated as investors weighed the Israel-Iran situation after President Donald Trump called for the evacuation of Tehran. Joining us is Deepak Puri, America's CEO at Deutsche Bank Wealth Management. Let me just start off asking you, what is the level of concern of the clients that you speak to around the developments in the Middle East right now?
Well, they're heightened for the time being, and that's not out of the ordinary, right? You're looking at a region that is the source for so much of the crude energy that flows through the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I think the transmission mechanism everyone is concerned about is the price of oil, because that's really how the geopolitical situation sort of transmits itself to the broader markets.
We had a bit of a bumpy ride for equity markets around April, that month, April to May.
Sure.
Fully recovered now. S&P is up 2.5% for the year. what are people saying about the outlook for risky assets? What could then this recovery that we've seen?
Quite a few things in the near term. I think the recoveries, because I think the sell-off was a little bit out of the ordinary, right? The sell-off in April was a little bit because you're looking at the most aggressive tariff regime that was going to take into place. And as we see, President Trump started to renege or pause some of those agreements, and market took a sigh of relief that it's not going to be as severe as what initially anticipated. I think now the market has too many narratives that it needs to build a consensus on. The first is with regards to the Fed. We're going to have a Fed meeting tomorrow, so we're going to get more insight there. But also the size of the reconciliation bill. I think from a U.S. perspective, it makes a big input in terms of what is the size and scope of this bill. The third thing would be the deregulation aspect. We haven't really seen that kick into the market psyche yet. That could really propel the market, but that's, I think, is a second half of the year story, not really the next couple of months. So next couple of months, I think the geopolitical and the fact that we had such strong may hover upon the market sentiment before the market gets ready for another takeoff.
What about July 9th? That happens on July 9th. That's when the 90-day pause comes to an end on tariffs. Are investors being too complacent about the possibility of these tariffs going up again?
I think we know how high they are going to go now. So the level of uncertainty is not there as it was on April 2nd, right? We know what the worst case scenario is. So you can sort of model that in your market outlook. I also believe that from now till July 9th, it's not too many days left, but you are going to see some bilateral trade agreements being reached. And last but not the least, as President Trump has shown, he can easily put a pause or put another deadline on some of these.
The tackle approach, as some people are calling it. I guess investors pushing to that point, and they know that at some point they either back down or there's a deal reached. Let's just talk about the reconciliation package. From an equity standpoint, are you expecting any tailwinds to corporates on back of some of the corporate provisions, say on capex and R&D, on interest rate deductions? I mean, could those provide somewhat of a tailwind to equities at the end of this year?
Absolutely, and you're seeing it. Cash is, and corporate America is in a very good health. You can see that with the earnings season. You can see it with how much cash they're carrying. You can see it from guidance they're giving. Yes, some of the companies are not really upfront with it, but if you look at the spreads, let's see on the corporate IG side, you see it's fairly tight, and that tells you that the economy is okay and the corporate, health is okay. I think some of these things that you mentioned might play a bigger role, along with the buybacks, which has been a common feature of this market for quite some time. So I think along with the depreciation probably is the number one, and some of the regulatory relief, both on the banking and telecom and tech side, these things might play a big role.
Is it fair to say then that in the second half of the year, you think that fiscal policy will move back to being in the driving seat for equity markets?
At least that's what the markets are hoping for.
Right.
As of today, you expect that the summer months are going to be a little bit tricky because we still haven't realized the base case for what the cost of tariff is going to be for the market. And the cost is higher inflation and lower growth. Once that is established, I think the next moving point is going to be the fiscal.
Do your clients believe U.S. exceptionalism is back on the table again?
I think it never went away, frankly speaking. I think we had such strong flows for 2022, 2024. A little bit of the rebalancing was in the order, and that's exactly what we saw.
Final question, because I always think this is interesting to see where individuals and retail accounts are positioned right now. What would you say is the most overcrowded trades that